Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I hope people are here. If you are here, sound off. I haven't seen anybody in the chat. If you're just going to lurk for the stream, hit ! Lurk, and we'll know that you're there, hiding in the shadows. Who's here in chat? Nobody? Nobody. That's impossible. I'll just start talking anyway, because in case you're watching the VOD, some fun stuff's going to happen. This is meant to be the... Oh, Poppy's here. Hi, Poppy. Good to see you. This is meant to be a conclusion to Uwe Rosenberg Month, but it's happening sort of like a week early. I wanted to have it happen in a week from now, but we have a very special guest today who's so important, who's so just slammed with all the amazing things he does. I think he does charitable work, growing crops for hungry kids. No, none of that. He's just busy. So I wanted to have him on next week. He's only available this week. So this is like the finale to Uwe Rosenberg Month with my special guest, who's going to be DMExplains. Now, DMExplains, in addition to being a professor of electrical engineering down in American land, and in addition to being an all-around decent and nice and kind and gentle guy, I also have to credit DMExplains, aka Dr. Ben, with helping to found this amazing community that we have at Knights Around the Table. I'm going to pull up a little graphic here for the Discord server, and I've talked it up recently. This is just, if you don't know what a Discord server is, if you've ever been on IRC or ICQ or any chat room like that, that's all that Discord is, and it's parceled out according to interests, and the interest here is generally board games. Now, I watched an interesting video that talked about leaders and people who try to start things and how they're all fine and dandy, but the real MVPs are the first followers. That's the first person who stands up with you and does the thing that you're doing. And I think I can really credit DMExplains with being one of, if not the first follower who was there when nobody else was there. He was in big empty chat rooms when it was just us, just yammering about games to each other. And then that slowly built into, I wouldn't say a massive community, but a wonderful community. If you want to check us out, check us out. That's weird. I'm talking weird today. If you want to check out the community, that was the Discord server right there. And I am going to bring him on the screen because he's here today. Are you excited? DMExplains is here today. Dr. Ben is here today to discuss our favorite Uwe Rosenberg games. Please welcome Dr. Ben McFerrin, aka DMExplains. There he is. I got to move over here so that he's not covering. You're on.
I'm on. Good.
The man, the myth, the legend. I'm so excited. So yeah, I forgot to say what you actually do on your YouTube channel. You have tutorials on MATLAB. Now, I wouldn't want anybody watching to get the wrong impression about Dr. Ben. Like, he's not a nerd. I mean, sure he likes board games, not Mattel stuff, but like niche stuff that even people who are into board games haven't heard about. I mean, sure, there's that. And I mean, sure, he's an electrical engineering prof. And yes, he does have a YouTube channel about sometimes about board games and sometimes about MATLAB, and sometimes he'll do Weezer song parodies of things going on at the university. But I would hate for you to get the wrong impression. Like, Ben, are you a nerd?
I would say that I'm at least 70% a nerd.
Are you nerd adjacent?
I'm nerd adjacent.
Did you get that like 23andMe thing back, and it said that you were a certain percentage nerd? Is that where we're getting that number from?
Yes, it's sort of like the same amount of my heritage that's German.
Oh, there you go.
Is nerd.
But you told me before the stream that was quite a large amount.
Yes.
Remember, if you're a nerd, you have to tell me, otherwise it's entrapment.
Well, I feel like my presence on the stream demands that I must be somewhat a nerd.
I don't know what you're trying to imply here, but here's what we have going on in this stream for you. We're going to be talking about 10, probably more, but at least 10 Uwe Rosenberg games. Hopefully you're familiar with the designer by now because we featured him all month long, all kinds of games. If you're not, this might not be the stream for you, but hopefully you can learn something about this designer, and maybe we'll convince you to try some of his games. We have Uwe Rosen Bingo for you today. So if you type !bingo in the chat, you're going to get a link, and that will send you to a site where you can hit a button and it'll generate a bingo card code for you. So the reason why I thought this was a good idea, let me explain myself, is because across Uwe Rosenberg's oeuvre, there are common elements. Wouldn't you say, Ben?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of elements in common. There's some pieces like using animals, having different resources that are common that show up a bunch. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things in common, and he's really a designer that iterates on himself a lot, and so you see common things across those.
For sure. And so in that spirit, go grab your Uwe Rosenberg bingo card. And as we talk about his games, if you find the things that we're talking about in the games, you can like mark them off and then let us know in the chat whether you got a bingo. Let's see what's going on. Fractal Dream says Ben's a very good Agricola player. Yes, we're going to probably Agricola will come up. And yeah, I've been smoked exactly once by Ben at Agricola, and that was enough for me, and I never wanted to play again. I was just playing an Agricola game. We have a tournament going on through the Discord server for Agricola on Board Game Arena, and I was very disappointed because I was smoking the competition. I was doing amazingly, like I've never done before at that game, and then due to some sort of timeout nonsense, it handed the victory to the player with the fewest points and said, game over, that's it, we're done. And I was devastated. And it was kind of like, if you've ever played Mario Party. That's happened to me at Mario Party. You play like a 3-hour game of awful Mario Party. It's not fun in the slightest. And then at the very end, I was like smoked. I cleaned up. I had all these points. And then some like gnome pops out from behind a mushroom and goes, let's play the Switch scores game. And then like rolls a die, and then it trades my score with the person in last place. And I'd never played Mario Party again. Trash game. That's all I gotta say. Oh, good. Everyone's punching in bingo and getting the link. I think it's the same link for everybody. Not everybody has to punch in bingo. Just use the same link, and you'll hit generate, and it'll generate your own unique bingo card. Your own Uwe Rosenberg bingo card. I'm going to say Uwe a lot. I want to correct myself. In past streams, I've called him Uwe, and I realize it's because American film reviewers who are talking about Uwe Boll call Uwe Boll Uwe. But even Uwe Boll doesn't call himself Uwe. He calls himself Uwe Boll. Hi, it's Uwe Boll, he says in all his interviews. Anyway, Uwe Rosenberg. Berg, and then the German, like, K for G. Uwe Rosenberg. You know, that's going on. I don't know.
We are definitely going to mispronounce some things today.
So many things. Oh, Don cheered. Yeah, thanks for the cheer, Don.
We apologize to all the people we offend by mispronouncing things in advance.
Yeah, and there's just plenty to mispronounce, but we've done our very, very best. So good, Don's here. I'm glad. I see Don. Poppy beat you on timeout with timeout nuts. It's true. Yeah, Poppy was the one. I didn't want to out Poppy. It's not Poppy's fault. But I mean, this is the other thing though. We didn't know what the meta score was doing, so who knows? I might not have won by the end. Poppy might have been just building up in that last turn. I think Poppy was really gonna pull it out. Great. So we might as well. Oh yeah, I should tease actually what's happening near the end of the stream. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna trade back and forth 5, 4, 3, 2, and then before we get to our number 1 Uwe Rosenberg game picks, I have a very special 5-round quiz called You Don't Know Uwe for everybody to participate in, including you, Dr. Ben. So this is kind of like a stump the chump kind of thing. Dr. Ben is our resident Uwe Rosenberg expert. He has played way more games than I think any of us have by Uwe Rosenberg, so he should know the most. But he's a little bit cocky and a little bit too big for his britches. So what I would like you to do in chat is play this quiz, this 5-round, 25-question quiz, and see if we can take him down a peg or two and beat him at his own game. So this does require knowledge of a wide spectrum of Uwe Rosenberg games, and I even have 2 categories that focus in on 2 of his more well-known games. We'll get to that once we get past these number 2 picks. That's super exciting. And I should also mention that we do have DMExplains to thank for inspiring Uwe Rosenberg Month. We did it last year again in November. We repeated it again this year. Might do it again next year if it proves to be popular. Otherwise, something different. Here we go. Are you ready, Dr. Ben, to tell us your number 5 pick for your favorite Uwe Rosenberg game of all time?
Yeah, so as Ryan mentioned, I've played a whole lot of Uwe Rosenberg games. Specifically, I've played 20 of them, something like 150 something times. I don't know. So this pick is very popular on Board Game Geek and will probably upset some people who are avid fans. But, of course, I like a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games, so it's going to be hard for me to criticize or
this was like a Sophie's choice kind of situation for you, right? You had to narrow it down and kill your babies.
My number five is A Feast for Odin.
Number 5, hold up here. That's your number 5. Wow, I gotta get out of the way of the... Okay, tell us all about A Feast for Odin.
Sure. So A Feast for Odin is a worker placement game in which there are something like 60-something spots on the worker placement board. And these spots let you do things like collect resources and upgrade resources, but essentially what you're doing over this time is you're collecting different tiles which will be placeable on your home board, and that home board has a bunch of negative spaces that you can cover up, and the lower value tiles are things that can't be placed together and higher value ones can be placed together, and so essentially everything is in service to that one puzzle, but it lets you do crazy things like so it's a Viking themed game. It lets you do crazy things like go out whaling and put the bones from the whale into your house, and it lets you go pillaging and raiding and get things from England. Like there's literally a crown that you can go and pillage, and there's a like crucifix, and you got to figure out sort of like a polyomino tile laying game of trying to fit these on to give yourselves more income, and it's really an efficiency puzzle. The reason this game is number 5 for me, as opposed to being higher, is that 60 spots is a lot of spots, and yes, a lot of them work together nicely. There's also a couple other pieces to it that I don't super love, like there's occupation cards that I personally haven't found that useful. I've played this against other people, specifically Poppy on the Discord server, who kicks my butt every time. And maybe part of the reason this isn't at the top of my list is because I'm not very good at it.
Because Poppy beats you, so down it goes. Stuff it down.
It's the type of game where he took a bunch of different ideas and sort of shoved them all into one. So it's sort of like a kitchen sink thing, and some of that doesn't quite cohere for me. It's a really great game that I like a lot, but I just like some of his other, what I would call more elegant designs a little bit more.
That's all fairly put. I may have more to say about A Feast for Odin maybe later on in the episode, so maybe just get rid of that and we'll kill that. On to it's a good pick. Let me just say it's a good pick without giving anything away.
Before, like, how many Uwe Rosenberg games are in the top 100 on Board Game Geek? Like 6 or 7 or something like that? Like a whole bunch. So like there's a feast of good games to pick from.
Look at you with the sound bites. Before we continue, Omelette wants to know how bingo is actually supposed to work. So was anybody able to mark off anything on their bingo card that they heard Dr. Ben mention while he was talking? So what do we got? If you have polyominoes on your bingo card, now's the time to mark that off. I believe there are sheep in A Feast for Odin. What else do we have? Norway, if you have Norway on your bingo card.
I said resources.
You did say resources. There's a harvest period.
It the Canadian way for you.
What's that?
I even pronounced it
resources,
the Canadian way,
with a Z. There's a harvest in A Feast for Odin. What else do we got? There's beans in A Feast for Odin. If that's on your bingo card, you can check that off. I'd be amazed if we didn't have somebody get a bingo like right off the bat if you mentioned A Feast for Odin, because like you said, it's a pastiche of a bunch of different ideas he's tried in past games. So it hits a lot of this stuff. Let me see what else would be on here.
Farming. The way I see it is we should just have them cross off things if we mention them, because there will be things that we don't mention that, whether or not they come up. But it is a really neat game, and it's similar but different to other things in his repertoire. So
I would say so. Poppy says, I'm not good at Agricola, so what does that make you, Ben? Poppy's not good. I was asking how bingo works. Jugala says, Poppy beats me too badly. I don't really know what I'm doing yet either. Looking forward to trying to figure it out, though. I need some tips from Poppy. Yeah, Poppy, I haven't played against Poppy yet, but it sounds like Poppy's the one to beat. If you would like to try to beat Poppy at A Feast for Odin, why don't you hop onto the Discord server? I gotta plug it every single chance I get it.
I've played the game like 10 times, and my best score solo was something around 100 or 110 or something like that. And when I played against Poppy, she did things that I have never ever seen a human do in that game.
Give you an example. I'm dying to know.
Well, like, I feel like it was the second round and she already had like 4 or 5 income, and like whoa. I was like, how did you get all these resources? And like hitting multiple islands. She just took a different route, which I guess it's great that the game has so many paths that you can explore.
It does, but you know what? It is deterministic, though, isn't it? Like, there's no... Well, I guess that randomly you get random card draws.
You've got some random card draws, and you have dice that you roll on whaling and things like that. But those are mitigated by the fact that if you fail, you get something back for it, right?
You do. Yeah, and I wonder how many people look at that game and go like, "Ooh, dice in a Euro game, blah, run," and they don't want to play it. But yeah, it really is... and when the first couple of times that we played it... Spoiler alert, I have played it. My wife Cheryl didn't want to do any hunting because it involved dice rolling, and she, didn't want the negative consequences. But there are no really negative consequences. It's all positive. It's just you get more if you succeed, and less, but still stuff if you fail. So even failure is
arguably, though, the spots that involve dice are the ones that give you the best rewards and tend to be the most efficient, because like in some cases, you have to put out 2 or 3 Vikings, but you get all but one of them back if you fail or something like that. So like it's efficient in that you're still gaining something for your turn.
And it does that risk versus reward thing too, because it's not usually, for a lot of the spaces, it's not even free to go hunting. You need a ship, or you need a certain collection of weapon cards, and the better stuff requires the cards that you don't get right off the bat, like the swords. You have to sort of fish those out of the hunting deck. I guess that's randomized too, right? The weapons that you get in your weapons deck.
Sure, but a little randomness doesn't hurt.
No,
it's still an efficiency engine, and that's really what we'll talk about a lot, I think, with the rest of the games on these lists.
So let's get to the next one. Let me hit the Ryan phase. Ryan's number 5.
So this is going to be a surprise to me, because Ryan knows my list.
Of my picks. I don't know if you even heard of this one, but my number 5 favorite, and it like barely squeaked on the list. It's a little game called Agricola. Have you heard of it? You do know.
So I have the same reaction to this that you did to A Feast for Odin.
It's funny, the video is glitching to the point where it looks like you have a large, nasty Joker-style gash on the side of your face. Like there's this weird glitch that makes it look like you were either eating strawberry jam or eating strawberry jam out of somebody's carcass. It's really, really weird. Is everybody seeing that?
I do not understand why this is happening.
I don't know either. I thought you had a filter on for a second. Like, ooh, Ben's got the scary Halloween filter on like a month too late. I don't know. It's so weird.
My face is almost horrifying.
You look great. I think the glitches are just making it really strange. Anyway, Agricola. Let me just pop on over to Board Game Geek and we can look at some Agricola pictures. So Agricola, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is his most well-known game. If you don't know anything by Uwe Rosenberg, you know this one.
It's certainly one of his more popular games, I would think. Right.
So this is a farming simulator, and you get a little grid of tiles, and you're a subsistence farmer, which means that you only eat what you grow. You're not producing excess. These are some fancy meeples that don't actually come with the game. That I'm just cruising through the. There's a lot of custom stuff on Board Game Geek. Let me actually get to some pictures of the actual base game. Oh man, my gosh, people have tricked out this game like bonkers. This is nuts. And it's funny, the very first, this is a good example, the very first copy that I owned didn't actually have meeples. It just had little discs for everything. So each wheat was a disc, and the reed was a disc, and all the animals were discs, and I had to get a special upgrade called the goodies just to get these meeples in. Anyway, back to the game. It's a farming simulator, so you can plow fields, and you can fence in areas, and you can collect animals, and it's a worker placement game, so there's a central location full of a bunch of spots. Not nearly as many as the 64 in A Feast for Odin, but there's a few. There's over a dozen for sure. I'd say there's about 20 by the end of the game, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it starts out around like 7 or 8 usually.
Yeah,
and
depending on player count.
Yeah, it does depend on player count. And then every round you add a new worker placement spot to the board, basically.
Right, and just like A Feast for Odin, and this predates A Feast for Odin by a good number of years, you either are a bunch of decks and you get a handful of 14 cards, 7 from each deck. One is ways to improve your farm a little bit with usually equipment or machinery, and the other is hired hands that you can use to work on your farm to do different things. So the hallmark, and I do have a Find the Fun video. Oh, wow. Nobody even saw any of these
I was going to tell you.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Look at this. So here's your pic. Thank you, chat. Here are pictures. It's because it blocks my window. Here are pictures of the Animeeples, and that's sort of what the worker placement spots look like. That's a punch board.
Yeah, the revised edition has Animeeples in them.
That's right. Yeah, if you buy it now. But they also did what a lot of board game companies are doing, where they want to make the price point lower because then they can sell, you know, the 5 to 6 player expansion, just like the Catan model, and they want to be able to sell the expansion farmers of the moor, and they can't do that if they don't get anybody in the door to begin with. So what they did was they came out with a revised edition, and they cut a big pile of the cards, which I guess they then folded into expansion decks that you can buy. So I mean, it's a smart business move for sure, getting people in the door at a lower price point. So that's what you got with the new revised edition. I have the OG, which means any insert that I get, the game won't fit in. Great. So let me just find. I'm just cruising through the gallery here, looking for it. It's Clemens Franz illustrated the game. What else can I say about it? It's the hallmark of this game is.
Wait. You skipped past some of those cards and some of those Clemens Franz faces.
Yeah, it's actually
that's something we need to talk about.
It's one face. Clemens Franz only knows how to draw one single face and then just puts a beard on it or a hat, and it's like
it's not nearly as bad as Oh My Goods, where he literally just copied and pasted and then recolored things.
Yeah, it's like the Final Fantasy Gambit, where it's like, look, it's a new monster because it's red. Like, I know what pixel coloring is. So yeah, the hallmark of this game, and I said it in the Find the Fun video that I did on Agricola, is the stress involved, because this is another thing about Uwe Rosenberg games, is he likes this idea that you are constantly working up against just this ongoing debt that you have. And in Agricola, it's that you have these family members and you have to feed them. So play a few rounds and then harvest comes and everybody in your household, you're on the hook to give them food. That's fine. But then in the next round, harvest comes again, and it comes even sooner. So you're still on the same hook for the same amount of food. And the more family members you add, sure, the more places you get to take, but then the more food that you have to feed everybody. So it just, somehow it gives you the impression that the earth is spinning around the sun faster and faster and faster as this game goes on, and your responsibilities are getting more and more dire as you go, and it just turns into just this, you just develop like this flop sweat by the end of it, and like, oh, I've got to do so many things. Because the other thing about this game, and this is another thing that Uwe Rosenberg loves to do a lot in his games, is all those spaces on your board are negative points. He did the same thing in A Feast for Odin and a few other games. They're negative points, and you're on the hook for those points by the end of the game. If you don't build stuff to cover those spaces, that's it. You get dinged, right? So not only are you trying to feed your family, just like in real life, but you're trying to grow this farm, and if you don't, the game punishes you. I wish I could credit the person that I heard talking about this, because it seemed smart, but after games like Agricola came out, and I think it was the forerunner of these concepts, there was I don't want to say movement, but there was murmuring, I think, in the board game design community, where they were telling each other and coaching each other to embrace the concept of abundance in board games. So instead of like, when you take a turn, if you don't do this, you lose points. Instead of that, you take a turn and like, here, have some resources, have 5 read, have a house, have a car, have all this stuff, because that just kind of feels better. And I have a friend named Doc who runs Mercury. It's a publisher of board games, and they did a game, I wish I could remember the name, but he said that, I think it was Capitals. He said the idea is you're trying to get the World's Fair to your city, but you got like a little Hoboken, Sheboygan kind of out of the way city. You don't have Chicago. You have this, this rural backwater, and throughout the game you're trying to elevate its status to the point where they would deign to have the World's Fair there. So you're really trying to improve the city, but you start out in the hole. You start out with negative points because it's not New York. You know what I mean? You don't have San Francisco. And he said that the feedback from players was that they hated that. They couldn't get over the fact that you start in debt. You have this hole. So I think there's been a movement since Agricola to have an abundance thing going on with game design, so that you do stuff and you get lots of stuff and you feel like you just feel like you're in surplus the whole time rather than in deficit.
You're not wrong. So like this morning, as we were talking about before the stream, I played Hadrian's Wall, which is new, very, very new roll and write, which is really a Euro in roll and write form, or flip and write, I suppose. And you basically start every round with this handful of resources, and it's like, how am I going to use this? And if I use this, then I get to unlock this thing that does this thing. And it's just this feeling of abundance and combos, right? Right, yeah. So, not to spoil anything, but you've played 9 Uwe, whatever.
Uwe game, yeah. I played 9 of them.
You've played 9 of his games. Mm-hmm. What makes Agricola sort of right in the middle of them for you? Is it the stress?
Oh, what makes it as low as it is, or what makes it as high as it is? Sounds like you're asking.
As low, I suppose. Like, 5 being right in the middle. Like, I know some of the games that are lower down your list for sure, and I know what you don't like about those.
Right.
Games, they won't appear on my list either. So spoiler, but like Patchwork, for example, is just it just isn't. It doesn't do it for me, and so why is Agricola sort of that low on your list? Is it the stress, or is it the theme, or you've just played it too much, or what?
It's exactly that. I've played it. It's played out for me. I love the complexity of it. I love the depth of it. I love that it feels like it's essentially a different game every time, but it just feels like I've played it way too much. And with a list of 9, it's really easy to say, like, it's really easy to order them and say, I'd rather play this ahead of this, and I'd rather play that instead of that. And that's just kind of where it floated. So there's 4 other ones that, if presented with a game shelf of 5 Uwe Rosenberg games, I would play 4 of them before Agricola. I'm not saying it's not an excellent game, but this is a personal choice thing, right? It is an excellent game, and if you've never played it, you'll probably have an absolute blast with it. But because I have played it so much, there's just other stuff I'm going to reach for first.
And I don't disagree. That's why A Feast for Odin, which is widely regarded as one of his better games, is number 5 for me.
Right.
These are all. I think most of the games we're going to talk about today are good games. Most of them very good games. So.
Yeah, it's all hits. It's all hits from here on in.
Yeah.
Let me catch up with what chat is trying to say to us. Let me kill that. So Zero Aperture points out that Ricola is a great cough drop. Thank you for that. We can't see the pictures. Thank you. I messed up. Okay, I'll pay more attention next time. Fractal Country says, I didn't like Agricola at first, but Dr. Ben made me do some solo plays as homework. You're assigning homework? I'm never going to get people to the Discord server.
That is part of my job, is to give homework.
True,
so I figure I should just extend that into the community. Yeah,
sure. I'm sure they love you for it. Almlet says I had similar trouble with it. Yeah, it's definitely not a game for all tastes. I think because of that stress factor. I learned Caverna first, says Tamriel. First learned Caverna, and then it was easier to get into Agricola. I could definitely understand that for sure. Just kind of like, I don't know, maybe if you play Roll for the Galaxy, it'd be easy to play Race for the Galaxy after that. The rules were way easier. In Caverna or Agricola, Tamriel? I got a bingo. I got a bingo spot. Negative spaces. Not a bingo. Not a bingo. Tell us again.
Negative spaces.
The Agricola card play, says Zero Aperture, is fantastic. It can really alter your strategy more so than his other designs. Sorry, I gotta duck around all the. My view is partially blocked by my camera over here.
Did we mention begging cards for failing to feed your family?
Because
that's one of the biggest things about Agricola. Yeah. Not only do you start with negative points on your board, but every phase, of which there are, what, 5?
I think 5 or 6, yeah.
Something like that. Every harvest phase, every family member you cannot feed, you take a beggar token for, and that's minus 3 points.
Oh, no. I'll correct you. It's not every family member.
Food.
It's every individual piece of food.
Yes,
you have to go begging
you're
card.
short. Yes, thank you.
So yeah, we played it like it makes sense, right? Oh yeah, every family member I can't feed, I got to take a begging card. That's a drag. But then when we really read the rules closely after a couple of plays, we're like, oh my gosh, every single food. So if you're down 3 food, that's negative 9 points. This is another thing with Uwe Rosenberg games is punitive scoring, I would say. Fractal Computing calls those shame cards, those begging cards.
And frankly, that's another common term for the game is to call it misery farm.
But there's something fun about it. I think in my Find the Fun, I called it funstration, which is a term I'm fond of, where sometimes the struggle is enjoyable because at least like with feeding your family in real life, like you can't walk away from that. That's actually a thing. I can see why people wouldn't want to make it part of their hobby time, but at least with Agricola, you can flip the table. In real life, not so many options. Zero Aperture points out that it's really nice to see the interplay of cards. And I will say, if you're going to play Agricola, at least for like your second or third play, I highly recommend, if you know the game a little bit better, doing a draft for those cards. So instead of just taking what comes to you, pass the cards around the table, everybody grabs one until you've got 14, 7 of each in each deck. Cool.
For sure.
Oh, and Almut has just begun to lurk. Thank you for letting us know. Great, so we'll move on to number 4. Let me just cue this up here. So I want to know your number 4 Uwe Rosenberg game. If A Feast Road was 5, it only gets better from here in your mind.
Yeah. So number 4 for me is La Havre.
La Havre. It's really hard to say because you can't say the H. Man.
Yes, I know. I'm not a French scholar, but this game you just played on the stream on Saturday.
We did, yeah, with Cheryl.
And what I like about Le Havre, which I'm going to use the H for.
Yeah, I think I will too. It's easier.
What I love about that game. So let me describe the game. It's a game about collecting and shipping goods and building buildings. And that sounds super boring. Unless you're an accountant.
And then, boy, howdy, you're going to have a good time.
Or just that's your thing. But basically, the turn structure is super duper simple. On your turn, you move your little ship token forward to the next available space. And then you essentially have 2 options. You can either take a bunch of resources from a dock, or you can use a building by placing your worker disc on it. At the start of the game, though, the only worker placement spots that are available are ones that are owned by the town that the only value of them is for building other buildings. So you have to collect resources to build buildings. And basically, by buying and building buildings, you're going to be building out a tableau of worker placement spaces throughout the game. And you can use other people's buildings and they can use your buildings, but there's almost always an entry fee, either of food or money, that you have to pay to use it. So it sort of gives you a perk for having built that building. And basically, you collect these resources, you can transform them. Basically, they're tiles with 2 sides. One side of the tile is like a less refined version, and the other side is a more refined version. And you can build ships. There is still a feed your people phase. Mm-hmm. Where each franc, I think that's the money.
That's right.
Each franc is worth 1 food if you don't have enough food. So you may have fish or cows, which you can turn into smoked fish. That's the refined side. Or what is it? Steak and leather is the refining if you take it to the abattoir. Mm-hmm. And you can build ships which provide some food. You can essentially try to allow these resources. So every time you move your ship, those resource spaces are accumulating new things. And so it sort of speeds up the resources accumulation from Agricola to do it like multiple times per round. something about the game, I like nautical themes, so that plays into this as well. So I really like Fleet and Fleet dice. You can see Fleet right behind my shoulder as well. I like nautical themes, so that plays into this as well. But something about this game is just satisfying and enjoyable, both as a solo game and a competitive game.
All fair points. And now, the counterpoint. I'm not going to go so far as to say that La Havre fell flat for me, but there were a couple of things thematically about it, like the connection between theme and mechanics wasn't there. So let me explain. Like you said, it's a feed your workers, feed your family kind of thing going on, but you only have one worker. So I had trouble figuring out who that worker was supposed to represent. Like, that's my workforce, right? So that
I see.
That dude is unloading stuff from the docks. Okay, fine. And that dude is also entering buildings and shipping those things from the dock. Okay, that makes sense. But is also constructing things for me, is also purchasing buildings and boats and building boats, and is like running the gamut of all this stuff that a longshoreman wouldn't actually do.
So my counterpoint is that I don't envision that as a single person.
Yes. So
I envision that as actions your company can take.
Tamriel is now following. Just thank you so much for the follow, Tamriel. Sorry to cut you off, but I will cut you off further to say, hold on now. That makes sense. That's your workforce, right? Your workforce must be getting larger and larger because every single round that one glom of people eats more and more food. By the end, they start off eating 3 food, and then by the end they eat 20 food, which implies that your workforce is growing. Sure. Yet mechanically, your workforce can only somehow do one thing per round. It doesn't make any sense. At least with Agricola and Caverna, as you grow your family, you get more discs and you get more workers to place on different worker placement spots, and you can spread them out. And each new disc you add, you incur a higher food cost. With La Havre, it didn't make any sense. You still have the same one disc to place on buildings, and yet this one disc is somehow consuming more and more food every round, like it's a giant black hole. How does that make any sense?
I mean, you're not wrong, and frankly, yes, I like the nautical idea of it, and frankly, logistics also super interesting to me because I'm a nerd, which we already discussed at the top of the stream.
Don't out yourself; they would never have guessed.
But yes. The game just mechanically, like, I've played a lot of worker placement games, and having exactly one worker and being able to build the worker placement spots like that, and getting a benefit for building the worker placement spots. I think at some point you talked about in Arnak, for example, Lost Ruins of Arnak. If you go out on a limb and you explore a new space
and pay all the stuff
for it and overcome the Guardian, then somebody else can just swoop in and take that, benefit.
Some joker.
And La Havre gives you the benefit of, hey, I actually built this thing.
Yep.
Every time somebody wants to use it, they're going to have to pay me for it. And one of the fun things that I like that I don't often use, but if you have a building in your possession and somebody else is on it and you don't like that and you want to use it, you can sell it back to the town and kick them off that building so that way you can use it.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet, and we didn't actually figure that until what's going on. Don did something, gifted a thing, and I don't know. I've never seen that before, but Don's got some crazy thing going on in chat. You have gone full Matrix code, like impressionist painting. Oh, there we go. You're back. I don't know what's going on technological on the stream. But yeah, you're right. I love that rental thing. That's what bugged me about, I love Arnak too, but that's what kind of bothered me about Arnak, because other games like Lords of Waterdeep, if you're the one who built it and somebody goes and uses your land, you're the landlord. You get a kickback, right? I love the idea of kickbacks, and La Havre has that, which is great. Just, thematically, the marriage of mechanics and theme, that bit didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And there are 4 other games that I would reach for instead of La Havre. I'm not saying La Havre is bad. I did quite enjoy it. Thematically, though, there are other... I'm a theme guy. There are other themes that I gravitate towards before.
My sense is if Cheryl was on the stream, she might actually have La Havre in her top 5.
That's a great question. I didn't actually ask her.
Well, at the end of your La Havre stream, you sort of went like one by one, like pairwise comparisons, right?
Right.
And I think that you had a good, like, she definitely would have said Le Havre over Agricola.
For sure. I think she feels the same way about Agricola as I do. It's kind of like we played it to death, and it's time for something new. Though we still like Uwe Rosenberg games, and we like his shtick quite a bit.
For sure, for sure.
What's chat saying? There is no spoon. Hold on, I got to catch up with what's going on here. Did you print a fancy insert for Love? Oberon asks. Oberon, I checked out Thingiverse, and one person had made, I mentioned this on the stream too, was making, and it was an unfinished thing, so I don't know why it was posted, but you know how Love has all these warehouses along the middle that you get all the stuff from? So this person had made little cool 3D printed buildings with little removable roofs on them that you put the resources in, but there were a couple of reservations I had about them. I didn't notice if they were scooped. As you know, I really like containers, especially for these Uwe Rosenberg games where you got a million square chits. You don't want your fingers to be hitting right angles in the corners of square wells because it's hard to dig those little square chits out of right angles. You want them scooped. So I didn't know if they were scooped, and it was unfinished, and it didn't fit absolutely everything, and the person said, oh, I need to work on this and this and this. So what I did today was I actually, because I did a 3D printed insert for A Feast for Odin, those component trays that you use for like GMT games and stuff, for all those little chits and tokens, those got kicked out of the box. One of them fit in the Norwegian's expansion box, but I had this extra one that couldn't fit anywhere. So I actually used that, and I put all my Law of stuff in one of my Feast for Odin component trays, and I stuck that in the box, and that all fit. Not a bad idea. Nicely. Yeah, not terrible. It worked. But yeah, I'm definitely looking for a good solution for all of these games, for Law especially. Ryan, did someone write a variant post on BGG about loaning out Arnak research sites? I think, Varys, somebody did, and that person may in fact have been you. So yeah, I wrote this article, I wrote this thing saying like, oh, it'd be cool if there was rental, and true to form for the internet, I had a big pylon of people going, that would never work, stupid. Obviously they play tested it, and the ideas that they published are the best ones ever. Duh. I'm like, okay, not like I'm a career game developer or anything, kids. So I did, but I didn't put in the effort to actually try out how it would work or test it. But Varys did. So maybe, I don't know, if you want to go find that link, maybe Omelette can post it for you if you'd like to read the article. I'm very sort of curious about the fact that,
people defend the playtest. Some games, especially last year, that was a game released in the midst of a pandemic.
Yes.
I think they must have done a marvelous job of playtesting the game because it is a very good game. Mm-hmm. But I think something that can happen in playtesting is that you get the meta of the group that's doing it.
Yep.
And then
no new
as soon as you release it, somebody does something else, and they're like, oh, I've never seen somebody do this in 1,000 playtests.
Yeah, and then if you're the people who make like Terra Mystica, it's like, oops, we better revise. We got to come up with more rules to make it more fair because they've collected all this data on like VGA or whatever. And then even after that, then they put in an expansion, and then after the expansion, they're like, oh, here's the new revised rule. I mean, I think Stonemaier Games did that with Scythe. And I mentioned Stonemaier Games again. Oh, you're going to mention someone?
Well, Tapestry is a good example of a Stonemaier game that did that. But and I'm not saying, I'm not saying there's anything objectively wrong with Arnak. I just think it could be better if you had some reward for getting that those expeditions.
Well, Varys came up with a possible fix for it and actually tried it. So if you want to check out Varys' article, hopefully we're getting that link up there for you in the chat.
Sure.
I think that Stonemaier Games, there's a cautionary tale in there, and Stonemaier Games is the exemplar for that in Pendulum. So I don't know a whole lot about it, but just cursorily, what I understand about Pendulum is that Stonemaier Games, of course, they're designing games, and they're going, they're receiving pitches from game designers, and they're constantly looking for whatever their next product is going to be, and they're doing market research. And of course, like any business, they're trying to situate themselves so that they put out a product that people really like, and they make as much money as they possibly can for it. Of course. So their people, their dyed-in-the-wool, diehard Stonemaier fans of all the stuff that they could put out, told them absolutely pendulum is the one that you want to go with. That's the one that we think you'll have the most success with at market. And I think it hasn't really turned out that way for them, unfortunately, with that particular product. But like you say, you create like an echo chamber, or you get a group of people. I guess the caution is to not. You need to introduce new blood as much as possible in playtests and make sure that you really are serving as broad an audience as possible if you want to make the cheddar.
Yeah.
Right.
So Ryan,
we'll move on from your.
Yeah, I was wondering what your number 4 game is, because I have a feeling that one of the games that you have coming up is a lot like Le Havre. So.
Interesting. I wonder which game you could be talking about. My number 4 is Glass Road. Did you expect that?
I wasn't sure actually after your Twitch stream if it would be that high, because you both indicated that it probably wouldn't be your first choice, which I guess isn't bad if you're picking 5 games, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, we got a whole 5 to choose from. So there are 3 others that I prefer to play, and I've only played Glass Road once. Have you played it? Do you have a whole bunch of Glass Road plays under your belt?
I have 13 plays of Glass Road, I think. Yeah. And full transparency, my number 6, I literally have my list written in front of me, so you can even see, not that it'll probably glitch out right now, but number 6 is Glass Road. So yeah, I mean, I like this game a lot, so I'd love to hear what it was that you liked about it.
So there were a few different Uwe Rosenberg games that I tried for the first time this month. So Glass Road was one of them. You sent me a copy very generously of Ora et Labora. That was another one, which we played with Omelette on the stream a few weeks ago. And coming up this coming Saturday, I've got my friend Sean, who doesn't play board games at all, is going to be playing Hallertau with me. And I'm very, very excited about that. And that copy comes to us courtesy of Asmodee Canada, and we really appreciate their support on that. So I think
you'll like Hallertau, by the way.
I hope so.
I think you will.
I mean, all I gotta say, well, I won't say it because it'll wreck something in the quiz, but I'm very excited about a certain element of Hallertau that I mentioned before. But I almost see Glass Road. I think I would have thought differently about it if I hadn't played Ora et Labora, and I'm almost kind of like putting them together and playing them off one another. And definitely between Ora et Labora and Glass Road, I prefer Glass Road. What's the deal? Well, let me just pop open Board Game Geek so that I can get some pictures going so we see what we're talking about, in case you're not really familiar with Glass Road. We did a whole new thing on the channel called Déjà Vu, which is where Cheryl and I played a game of Glass Road, wrote down all of our moves, and then we replayed it on the stream, and then I edited it together. The idea being you would just kind of get like vertical slices of what was going on in the game, and we would be able to discuss strategy with each other, which we can't really do when we're live playing a game on a stream, because you can't let the other player hear what's going on. We've tried putting big headphones on. That didn't work. Cone of Silence turns out to be too expensive. It's an artifact, a relic from the 60s. So this is what it looks like. Again, just like Agricola, you've got a little mat and it's divided into a grid, and you can put things on the grid. Unlike Agricola, you don't have negative points for uncovered spaces, so that's not a thing. But you do have these resource wheels, which is something that you find in Ora et Labora as well, and these work in a really fascinating way. I thought there are just 2 main mechanics that are going on in this game, and both are really interesting. So the cards, let me just back up a bit to these pictures. The cards are called specialists, and everyone has the same hand of 15 cards. And just like something like Race for the Galaxy or Concordia, everybody picks a card and slaps it down on the table. But the neat thing about this is it's almost like the Race for the Galaxy. In Race for the Galaxy, when you put a card down, you're choosing a phase that you want to have happen, whether it's a building phase, a shipping phase, what have you. And in this one, you're almost like, you're not almost, but not quite, excluding a phase from happening. So if you play a card and somebody else has played that same card, every card has 2 actions on it. Now suddenly your card's power is diminished because you only get to do one thing. And the person who duplicated your card, it gets siphoned out of their hand, and they get to do one thing, but they only get to do one thing as well. So it's this really interesting, and I thought like, oh, so for sure, whenever you play, you're always trying to guess what somebody will have and trying not to duplicate the card. But then I found there are situations where you absolutely do want to guess what they're going to play and deliberately duplicate their card. And in other situations, you don't. And it kind of depends on whether you go first and how many cards you have in your hand and what needs to happen before you're trying to get other stuff accomplished. So that was the first fascinating mechanic to me. The second one was this resource wheel. It was wild. So you've got two wheels that represent your brickworks and your glassworks, and a bunch of other numbers, a bunch of other wedges that track different resources like wood and food and water and grain, all sorts of things like that. The neat thing was that there are two brown wedges, and when those empty out, the game kind of forces you to use all of your resources and pour them into the production of one piece of glass or one brick. So it makes you turn the wheel, which diminishes by one your collection of resources, but increases this valuable one, this glass or brick, by one. And of course, you use glass or brick to buy different buildings and put them on your board. And the buildings are comboable, so you kind of have to look at the board and figure out what's going to ping off this and do that. And it's really, really tight. The scores are like, I don't know. We scored something like 20 points. I imagine 50 would probably be like a top score in this game, though I haven't played.
I don't know that 50 is possible. If I'm
no way. Is it really
so
all down like 25, like 30 maybe max?
In the solo game, I think 30 is the goal.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So we weren't too far off in our first play then.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think you can score a little more multiplayer, but the two-player game is only like, what, 4 rounds long?
well, I mean, the multiplayer game is only 4 rounds long.
Yeah. The two-player game is only 4 rounds long. I think you get to do a little bit more in 3 and 4-player games. It's one of his games where you have sort of a difference depending on the player count. Or at Labora does the same thing, which actually I was sort of expecting you to have in your top 5. So,
But Ora at Labora, in my opinion, does it obnoxiously. I found that, like, when I wrote,
for sure.
Oh my god, when I wrote a script, I wrote a how to play script for Ora at Labora, and I just found like the section where usually I do a setup at the end of the video because I'm a cool guy and that's what all the cool people do. And if anybody puts setup at the beginning, don't watch the videos. No, I'm just kidding. But at the end in setup, the whole section where I'm describing how to set up, like if you have 2 players, do this, and you have 3 players, do this. And it felt like that Monty Python sketch where he's at the private boys' school.
Yeah.
Where he's like, and if your brother's having a haircut in the afternoon, take his coat off the upper hook, put it on the lower hook, and go and play rugby. And it's just like, what the heck is happening? So it was a lot less obnoxious that way, I think, to set up for 2 players, 3 and 4 players.
Yeah. So I mean, Glass Road is on my shelf, like right here. So it's I like this game a lot. I have a lot of it. I mean, I think the way that the buildings usually have a spatial puzzle associated with them is really good. I know you haven't played Broom Service, but this game is that's the closest feel with those cards. So Broom Service, you have a card and you can either play. This is almost like Oh My Goods. In Oh My Goods, you can do something sloppy, or you can do something not as drunk or whatever.
Right.
And the way that's basically the same idea in Broom Service. And if you do things cowardly, you get to do them. But if you want to go all in and get the extra perk, you do that. But if anyone else plays that, then you don't get to do it. And so that's really sort of the same type of thing. Like I said, I really like the spatial puzzles and the way those things work. It is maybe less stressful, although very tight. Less stressful because you don't have to feed your people or whatever.
Yeah.
The resources themselves are a little strange. Like the food looks like cream of wheat or something, and
it does. I wouldn't want to eat whatever that
really
is.
grosses me out.
Yeah. It looks like a little pile of like gunpowder, like blonde gunpowder or something. It's weird.
And the main reason this isn't in my top 5, other than the fact that I think that there are 5 better Rosenberg games, is those buildings. There's like a huge pile of buildings, and during a game you might see like 6 of each type if you're lucky. And much like in a solo game where that board isn't getting turned over as quickly, it's even less likely. And so the randomness of those building draws is sort of the problem I have with that game. Again, great game.
But I see that as a
recommend it.
feature, though, not a bug. Like, I
sure,
really like
because
that.
It gives it a lot of replayability.
Yes.
Right? And I would say one of the things you could do is you could play multiple games back to back because it's really short. At 2 players, if you aren't taking notes and streaming, it's like 40 minutes maybe.
Yeah, it's zippy. That's why we were saying it would make a good weeknight game. If you just want to get it, started and done in the same evening without, going over, that's the one.
Yeah.
Which I can't say for many of his other games.
So a bit of housekeeping. I was going to criticize when you said that Le Havre didn't work for you as well. I was going to criticize you picking Ora et Labora because they are largely the same game except with a spatial puzzle added in.
And let me think about that. Let me think. Yes, I agree. But yeah, in Ora et Labora, it matters where you put your buildings in relation to each other.
Yeah, and the wheel on Ora et Labora is just the resource accumulation that Le Havre does. And
yes,
but it adds the spatial puzzle. So I mentioned that earlier in the stream that Uwe likes to iterate on his designs.
Yes,
and so you can sort of see like Glass Road is an iteration on that Le Havre spatial puzzle thing.
For sure, but that whole tip in the scales, like when you clear those two things out. So sometimes you want to clear those two wedges out because you want a glass or a brick, and sometimes you don't. And like me, you screw it up, and then you lose the game by 2 points to Cheryl because you did it. It was neat.
There's no shame in losing a game by 2 points to Cheryl.
No. I felt pretty okay. I felt pretty okay with that. Let me just catch up with chat and see what they're talking about. I haven't actually played. Okay, wait, Tamriel. Let me catch up with what you're saying here. We're going back. I gotta scroll up. This is how much I've missed.
Well, it's good to have an active chat, right?
It is great. So Varys plugging his own article. I don't know if we posted the link. Hopefully we did. RNAC can't really be seen as a strict worker placement game the way that mechanics all blend. It makes me want to reevaluate how to go about worker placement space. About the worker placement space. It's a game about emergent opportunity for me. Yes, and that's actually how I teach Arnak and a similar game, Everdell.
Yes.
So it's. I know people have complained to me about Everdell. They say, "Oh, the cards I needed didn't come up," and it's like, well, then you're playing the game wrong. The problem is not the game. The problem is you. It's not about like sitting on your haunches and waiting to draw a card that works with one of the cards that you have. It's taking the hand that you're dealt and finding or creating those synergies, right? And it's the same with Arnak. It's not about like, I can't get up the research truck. Well, do something else, dummy, until you can. You know what I mean?
Right. So I don't think there's ever one repeatable strategy that you can always use to win the game, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's very smart, very, very cool. Let me just hide this. Nope, that's unhiding. It's that button, and we're good. There. What else is? God, I can't spell. Zero Aperture complains. Themes in Euro games. KEKW. I don't know what KEKW is an initialism for. Sounds like a project for Bits Please. How to add scoops and such. I would gladly do it, and I've done it with an insert for a game that will be coming up on my list shortly. You wrote the fix, not me. Did I write the fix? I think you wrote the fix. Or did I write the fix and you actually play tested the fix, Varys? There are always those that just want to see the world burn here. We're talking about the internet here. Those that see a new game and seek out ways to subvert the mechanics. I don't know who we're casting shade on here.
I think he's casting shade. I think he's not really casting shade. He's just joking.
Okay,
at your expense.
Glass Road over Agricola. Says Zero Aperture. Oh, yes. Come fight me, Zero Aperture. So with Side, they found, Oberon says, unstoppable win combos of factions and government boards. Yeah, and it annoys me now because I don't have that consolidated rule book. So it annoys me now when I pull out Scythe. I have to make sure when we set up, like, I got to go check the internet and make sure nobody has
I do the same.
Yeah, it's kind of a drag. I hope that it's articulated in that revised rulebook. I'd assume it is. Haven't actually played. Is. And number one will be Hengist or Hengist. Again, I don't know how to pronounce it, Tamriel. I haven't actually played Glass Road yet, but that looks like a bit of a resource wheel in Ora et Labora. It is, but it's got that forcey turny thing. Forcey or engineer turny thing is just the coolest.
It's different because in Ora et Labora you move the beam, and that is the resources accumulating. So
yes,
when you play Ora et Labora solo, you want to try to let things accumulate as much as possible before you grab them and start doing stuff. So,
but not too much, because then they disappear and are unavailable for the rest of the game.
Be real careful.
They go to they zero out. You can never have them again. Zero Aperture has to run. Have a great stream. Cool. And is now lurking. Zero Aperture, though, says, I like the building artwork of the game. I wish they had the same treatment with Nussford, which we may be talking about shortly. Push your luck mechanic. We're talking about bingo. Hopefully everyone's checking off their bingo cards. Nobody has a bingo yet. Confirmed for me. Tamriel said that he's currently designing any new... not designing any new mid-heavy or Euro games. Hallertau was just something he designed in 2013, but everything else is pretty meaningless stuff right now.
I too had heard this, that Hallertau was going to be his last big box game. Now, who knows what the future actually holds, right? But it means he's not currently working on anything big boxy, which is a little sad because
what's the reason? Does he not like them? Is it not selling? Is it too much work, or is he just retiring?
I don't know. I mean, he has. So I don't know that. I don't know what he does, as if he designs games as a full-time job or if it's just something he does because he likes to do it. He has a master's degree in statistics, I believe. So, sorry if that's a quiz question later.
I don't know. Perhaps it will require even deeper knowledge.
But it could just be that he is not. He no longer has that free time, or I think that he and his wife have a relatively young child. Like, it's possible that he just doesn't have the time to do that.
The Rick Moranis defense.
I don't want to speculate on why or why not. I haven't seen the interview.
He can't have not been doing this full time, though. If you look at his Board Game Geek credits and you go down and you look at the years next to every single game, it's like this dude's cranking out like 2-3 games a year. There's no way that that's like a free time thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame, though, because like 8 or 9 of his games are in my top 100 of all time. So.
Yeah, but I mean, let's let the guy, if that's the deal, let's let the guy be a dad. I'm okay with him being a dad, and maybe when he's, old and shuffling, he can come back and crank out a few more good ones for us to enjoy. Let me just also say, there's plenty of, you talked about that big stack of buildings, and you didn't like that in Glass Road, but like, look at all the decks and cards available in Agricola, and then there's two different decks in a Feast for Odin. I haven't even cracked into the B deck for a Feast for Odin.
Although in both of in those cases, typically those cards are sort of split out into separate decks. So what the contents of deck A in Agricola is, for example.
I don't.
Well,
there's
you
too
don't.
Many cards. There's too many. No.
And as we've discussed earlier pre-stream, you have the memory of a 1985 computer.
I do, yeah. It doesn't, it's cool. It's basically every single time I play a game, it's like the first time. Should have elaborated. Push your luck mechanism is the element that's featured in Glass Road's card play as well as in Broom Service.
Right, because although the cool thing about Glass Road is even if you can't do your special bonus extra turn thing, you still get a turn, and you still get to do something.
Yes. I don't know if I would call it push your luck, though, that particular one. I think it's a risk for sure.
It certainly is a risk.
Yeah, it's a gamble. But I think a push your luck, I think push your luck specifically, and I'm the guy who tries to be like, board games 101, but I think specifically push your luck is like with each additional step you go, there's a higher and higher likelihood of busting, which isn't the case with Glass Road. With each step, this is because I don't understand statistics, though. It's like the Monty Hall problem. With every card you play, it's not more likely that somebody will have that card. It's in fact less likely with every card you play. So I think that's not... I don't know. You understand math better than I do, but that's not quite push your luck. But Zero Aperture also mentions Oh My Goods, which
is definitely push your luck.
Definitely push your luck.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think it's because, Tamriel says he wants to spend time with his family. That's what I understood from an interview 2 years ago. And he works as an editor for many games. Fair enough. Fair dinkum.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think at least Lookout was a company that was initially started with him as a part of it. So,
well, I was reading some of the liner notes for one of his games. I forget which one, but it mentioned that he seems to be tight with the founder of Lookout Games. I guess they're pals, so that makes a whole lot of sense.
Sure.
We're on to number 3 now, I think.
Yeah, you ready for my number 3?
I don't know if I could ever be ready, but I want to hear it.
Well, so number 3 is a game that you have not played.
Okay.
And it is Newsfjord.
Newsfjord. Let me pull
which
it
is
up.
set in Norway, if we haven't hit Norway yet.
Why would you mention that, DMExplains?
I don't know, maybe to help somebody get a bingo. So Newsfjord, it takes a lot of the same spatial ideas that you find in Glass Road and does it, except instead of the sort of novel card play of Glass Road, it goes back to a worker placement style of game. And there's only, like, I think I counted these, there's like 12 spots, worker placement spots, and it's a really tight worker placement game, not very long, little tight economy. But basically what you're doing in this game is you're creating your fishing village in Norway, and you start out with a board that has some forests on it. It looks a lot like the Glass Road.
It looks like the same board as Glass Road.
Almost the same board as Glass Road. I'm not sure if the artist is the same. It's possible.
I think this is the same flipping game. I'm looking at these pictures. I'm like, this is Glass Road.
So it's Glass Road, though, has how many different resources? I don't know. Too many. Newsfjord has 3. Newsfjord has fish, wood, and gold. Okay. And that's it. So basically, you're developing a fishing fleet so you can get more fish, and the more fish you have, the more things you can build along with your forest. But also, your fish go to this central banqueting table. As if you scan through those photos, you might find it, and those allow you to collect some gold. You also can use them to attract elders to your village, and elders are people that give you sort of special worker placement spots that are off the board that are reserved only for you.
And it looks like one of the elders is Clint Eastwood in a Crocodile Dundee hat, am I correct?
I think that's pretty accurate, although Norwegian Clint Eastwood.
Right.
And the special thing about this game is that there are decks of cards which serve as the buildings that you're putting in your village, and those buildings are sort of tiered. So there's like A, B, and C buildings in each deck, and by working your way through, you're going to end up having sort of these A and B buildings that give you maybe one-time bonuses or resource conversions or whatever, and then you get the C buildings, which tend to be more meta-scoring buildings. It's a lot like Glass Road, except that those buildings are sort of tiered by when they come out and how they might come out.
So they're not shuffled. They come out at a specific prescribed time.
So they're not, A, B, and C are not shuffled together, but A would be shuffled, B would be shuffled.
Within itself, yeah.
Yes.
But you're not going to draw a C before you draw an A.
Right. And so one of the other cool mechanisms, I suppose, is that you have shares in your company, which will be negative points if you don't get them out. So one of the easiest ways to raise funds is to issue a share. That gives you some gold, which you can use to do things like buying boats and building buildings. And other players at the table can buy your shares. And what that means is when you do fishing, you're going to have to give them a fish for every share that they have. So that cuts into your fishing harvest.
That's interesting.
There is no feed your workers phase, so it's not very stressful. It's super quick, sort of on the same time frame as Glass Road. And if you play the solo game, it actually recommends that you do 3 solo games back to back, all with the same deck. And so basically, it lets you work through every card in that deck in like an hour, which is super cool. And so that the game is really finding the buildings on the board, on the central board, figuring out what you can get working, and then praying that your opponents do not also see those same synergies and try to go for it. So
that share thing sounds pretty cool.
It's such a small little part of the game.
How does it work in solo though?
In solo, so the way that solo mode works, there's actually 2 different ways you can do solo. The first is you have 2 different color discs, basically. So you block spaces for yourself for the following round. There's a more advanced version where you actually do that for 3 rounds. So you take 3 different disc colors and work. I think you're still issuing shares. There's no... Okay, so shares that you've issued stay on the main board until somebody buys them. Okay. And so when you
do they make
fishing,
a robot buy them somehow?
So you can buy your own shares back. But when you go fishing, a fish still goes to the shares that are in foreign possession, or like, which is like this really weird thing of, oh, cool, I get to bring home 7 fish, but 4 of them are going away from me, and I don't actually get to use them in this round.
It's neat. It's neat.
So it's a neat game. Yeah. Do I think that you'll? So again, it's sort of a nautical theme, which I know Le Havre isn't that thematically tied. Newsfjord might be slightly more thematic. I mean, in Glass Road, it's set in Bavaria or the Black Forest or whatever. Yes. They're making glass, right? I don't know that it feels super thematic that you're making glass and bricks and stuff. In Newsfjord, I don't know that it feels like you're in a fishing village, but it certainly is a tight little worker placement game that I really like. Not everybody does, and it's probably a dark horse for this because it's a lot lighter, I suppose, than most Uwe Rosenberg worker placement games. And so as a result, I think it's probably like 300 or 400 on Board Game Geek. It doesn't get nearly as much love as his other games.
But you know what's interesting? Throughout Uwe Rosenberg Month, the one game, and I mean it's not a large sampling of people at all, but the one game that people have mentioned to me in comments on the YouTube videos and just in chat and whatever has been this one. Yeah, they haven't mentioned anything else.
I just think it's a nice game, and it's like I said, it's not particularly rules dense. In fact, it's probably one of his most straightforward games, especially if you've played other games of his with worker placement. So I think that it's a game that, and especially I play a lot of games solo, so it has a lot more variability than like. We talked about Ora et Labora. The buildings in Ora et Labora are always the same buildings.
Yes, which is what I didn't like about Ora et Labora.
There's no randomness there. It's completely deterministic. Yes, it will take you a long time to solve that puzzle.
Yes, but you can solve it. It is solvable.
You can solve it. And Caverna, which we haven't talked about yet, maybe who knows. That one does the same thing where everything in there is deterministic. And Newsfjord, yes, everything is deterministic in the sense that it's in a deck, but that deck is somewhat random, but not nearly as thick as the stack of buildings in Glass Road. So anyway, I know you haven't played this, which is my goal was sort of to sell you on wanting to at least try it. I think there's a tabletop simulator mod that
what I need in my life right now, Dr. Ben, is somebody to convince me to buy more board games. That's exactly that's what I'm looking for.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh my God, forget about it. Let me take that off there. Kill it. Before we go on to my number, what are we on? Number 3. Tamriel said, okay, yeah, we're caught up with chat, I think. Hold on, can't wait to try this where it says Poppy.
People chiming in to say that it's on their wish list or they can't wait to try it. So
they're excited. My number 3, hold on, let me look at my list here.
I have a guess of what your number 3 is.
I'd like to hear your guess.
My guess is that your number 3 is Bonanza.
You have made a very good guess. Well done. Yes, my number 3 is absolutely Bonanza. This game, if you don't know this game, hold on. Let me just cue it up on Board Game Geek, and we'll take a look at a few pictures of it. Bonanza.
Imagine a card game, and imagine it's ugly, and then imagine it's uglier than that.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly. And if you're not picturing ugly enough, wait till we get to the photos of it. Just one moment. It's coming up. There we go. So this is, I think the biggest knock against it is the illustration. I mean, I don't even know if I would say it's cute. It's slightly grotesque, but especially when
who the illustrator was on the original version?
Who's that?
Uwe Rosenberg.
Oh, really? I noticed that he did have some art credits on a few of his games. Now, was he the artist of these slightly off-putting German cartoons?
I don't know.
Well, this is the game anyway. And I have a how to play video on my channel. Here's the situation. You're bean farmers, and you've got a handful of bean cards, and you've got 2 imaginary furrows in front of you that you're planting your beans into. It's a trading game, that's all fine. The hook with this game, and it came out at a time when it seemed like every board game of note had a fascinating hook. The hook with this one is, as you acquire cards in your hand, they have to go in a certain side of your card splay in your hand, and you can't rearrange them. They go in one end and they come out the other, and when they come out, you have to plant beans of a type in your 2 furrows, and you can't sort of mix species. This is something that should have been on the Uwe Rosenbingo cards, like the no crossbreeding or no mixing species, or they can't even be in the same pen together. So these beans can't even grow in the same furrow together, or else you got to harvest everything. You got to scrap the whole thing. So essentially, you don't want to plant certain beans. You'd rather get those beans out of your hand and be forced to plant the ones that get you even more points and more money as you go. The way you do that is by trading. So this is a highly interactive game where your turn is coming up, right? You can see it moving around the table, and like, oh my gosh, you're sweating as it comes closer and closer. Like, I do not want to plant this soybean, because if I can just get one more coffee bean out, I'll make tons of gold. And if I have to plant the soybean, I'll just be 1 card short of all these points I could be getting. So as it ticks around the table, everybody gets a chance to trade, and so you're trying to convince people, almost like Pit. If you've ever played Pit, you're kind of like not quite as frantic and screamy as Pit, but you're desperately trying to get these cards out of your hand to get the ones that you want to be able to plant right away into your hand. It's or to reorder them because you're not allowed to touch them. It's great. It's probably the best trading game that I own. I think I prefer it to Pit, though Pit is pretty high up there if you're looking for that kind of like.
Yeah. See, like this game is probably my 10th favorite
right.
Rosenberg game, because I would rather play Pit.
Yeah, fair. Although Pit has issues. Pit has issues, but yeah, this is like a slower, thinkier Pit. But to say it that way, it's not thinky at all. Like there's
the number one issue with Pit, especially right now, is it's not particularly COVID safe.
That's for sure. It's probably the second least COVID safe video or board game next to Watch Your Mouth, the one where you put in dental appliances
and
yes. work all over people. Yeah, it's but what I like about it, what do I like about it? It's easy to teach. Now, I wouldn't say that it's easy to. So it's easy to teach to kids, but I wouldn't say it's easy to play with kids, because children, we've talked about this on the Discord channel, they already have difficulty splaying a hand of cards in front of them. So if you have one of those gizmos where they can like line them all up, it's great. But just it's crucial that they don't mix their cards up, and kids are constantly fumbling and dropping their cards. So if you're able to
Sure.
drive that into them, that this is the indoor, this is the outdoor, and you can't mess with that, then you'll have an okay time. But with a kid of a certain age, it's not gonna fly. But right. With adults, I think it just plays really well. It's the kind of thing that you can bust out at Thanksgiving, maybe for people who aren't going to sit through Nussford or flipping Agricola or anything that's a lot heavier. So I really like it for that. And I think I was surprised to figure out last year, I don't think I immediately knew that the same guy who did Agricola was the guy who did this game. I like them both a lot, right. But like vastly different experiences, wouldn't you say?
So my 2 comments on Bonanza. It's a good game. I do like it. One, I do like the frenetic energy of Pit, which is part of what's missing. And I think that
you mean screaming, like yes, top of your lungs, screaming.
Yes, absolutely. And the bell dinging and making the dog bark, all that good stuff.
The dog bark. The bell's amazing. What's the dog?
My dog in my house.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, does that come with a special edition? I got to go get it right now. Okay.
I mean, I don't want to say anything critical about my dog on the internet. Anyway, but the negotiation, Pit takes negotiation and really takes the negotiation out of it.
Yes.
Because you have to make a split-second decision, yeah. Right? It's real time.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that the negotiation is where this game either hangs together or falls apart. And if your group isn't down to really negotiate and make a good decision within a reasonable time, this game can really hurt. And as a result, the couple times I've played this game, I've found it to just be a little bit longer than I want it to be. Like I could play a game
That's
of
fair,
Newsfjord
yes.
faster than I can play a Bonanza.
Yes.
So
that's a fair criticism. But as far as the trading thing goes, now I've heard a frequent criticism of Catan is that with Catan, that like often the smart move is not to trade, yet the whole game is built around trading. So it's almost like it's got a bug, right? Like its whole trading thing is broken. But with I think Bonanza fixes a trade mechanic like that, because if you don't trade, with Catan, if you don't trade, it's so that you don't help somebody. But in Bonanza, if you don't trade, you're drastically hurting your own strategy. Like, it's incumbent upon you to trade. It's advantageous to you. Sure, you might help somebody else out, but you desperately want to
no
trade.
other way to get through your cards in your hand if you don't trade.
You'll just get 1 point, 0 points every single turn if you don't trade. So I think it fixes that. One problem with Pit, though we're not talking about Pit, but let's talk about Pit, is that there's a card in there, like Booby Trap card, the bear card. And
the bear card, yes.
Yeah, my copy, I look at all the cards, and my copy, the bear card, is like really, really scuffed, because I think when people pass it, they're like, take the bear! You know, they like grind it against the table when they pass it. Something's going on with that bear card, but it's very well worn compared to the other cards.
I mean, but Pit is so quick, right? So if you have a little take that, it's not nobody's feelings are hurt that bad. And I've found it to be a really good game, pre-COVID, to bring out with students, to like get them to break
shouting
the ice
in
like
each other's faces.
Yes. There's nothing better than shouting at each other.
I agree. But yeah, you make a very good point about the length of Bonanza. I think that it could be a little bit tighter. Off it goes. Get out of here, Bonanza. Oh no, I keep hitting the wrong button. There we go. There we go. Kill, 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 murder, die. There, it's off. Let me see what chat's doing. We're talking about building spots in Nussfjord. Good gold star, Dr. Ben. My daughter's favorite Uwe is Bonanza. There you go, says Poppy. And Poppy also says, I haven't played Catan. Right, because Poppy, we forget, because she's off slaughtering us on Board Game Arena. It's easy to forget that Poppy's quite new to board games. So when you say you've never played Catan, we're all like, oh, what? It's like saying you've never played like Monopoly.
Well, maybe it's the pronunciation. Like maybe she's played Catan.
Don't get on my case for that. Yes, it's pronounced Catan. I refuse because we liked it before the internet existed.
I was thinking that actually on this stream I'm probably the least interesting accent that you've had, because most of your guests have either been Canadian or Mach V is British. So
that's right. Yeah.
I'm the least interesting to listen to, but
I mean, it's like we don't hear our own accents. So like David just sounded like a dude to me. Who knows?
Right.
Great. We'll get on to number 2, and then number 2 is going to be the last stop in this train to You Don't Know Uwe, which is our 25-question, 5-round Uwe Rosenberg quiz, which I would
I'm very stressed about it.
Oh, frankly. I'm glad you are.
I'm a little bit worried about losing to the collective cloud of 20 people also trying to compete
who can't use the internet, though, because they won't have time. The questions go very, very zippily.
That is true.
There's that. But I just have to say, you know how, like, as a professor, you must do this. You know how you kind of, like, drop hints, like, that's going to be on the exam, as you're talking, like, in mid-sentence? You've already said a number of things that will appear on the Uwe Rosenberg quiz.
So Tamriel asks, where am I? I assume you're asking where am I actually from, because Ryan is Canadian.
That's right.
I am from the United States, but I am from the area of the Midwest that is generally perceived to not have an accent.
Yeah, don't they say that you have the sitcom accent? I've heard that about Southern Ontario as well. That apart from
Columbus, Ohio is what they used to tell news anchors to try to model their accent after. Now, where I grew up was sort of the sticks, so there's actually quite an accent there.
Right.
But years of practice and education have helped me to overcome that.
Yeah, and I was going to say in Canada, you said, oh, Ryan's from Canada, as if we all sound the same in Canada, too. But we have a few regional accents in Canada. So
if you if we had a Maritimer on, it would be significant. It would be sound much more like Rodney from Watch It Played.
Yeah, you sound closer to Rodney, or Rodney is he's non-native to Prince Edward Island, so sound closer to, if you've seen Come From Away, that's the Newfoundlander accent. And then if you've ever heard somebody from California, that's essentially BC. I might get in trouble for saying that. If you've watched Trailer Park Boys, that's the Acadian sort of maritime accent. And if you've watched, you talk about Columbus, Ohio, and then rural Columbus, well, there's Southern Ontario, which I think is pretty close to Columbus, Ohio.
Probably.
Yes. And if you want to talk like the sticks, then watch Letterkenny, and you'll hear sort of what a rural Ontario accent sort of sounds like.
Sure.
Right.
All right, number 2, huh?
Number 2 to you, Ben. Ben's number 2 Uwe Rosenberg game is
Fields of Arla, which is another game you haven't played.
I cannot comment. Tell me all about it. And while you do that, let me just get it up on Burk and Geek, and we can cruise through their little...
So Fields of Arla is another game about a place. Dude loves his places. Specifically, It's about a place in Germany.
Hey.
I think on the North Sea. Is that... I don't know my geography. I'm
no
terrible.
Idea.
But it is the area of Germany where he grew up. So it's sort of like Uwe's love letter to his hometown. And really what it is as a game, if I were to like put it in a place, it's somewhere between like the excess of A Feast for Odin. Oh, Poppy got a bingo, so I'm going to pause right now.
Oh, very good. Yes, Poppy got a bingo. Poppy, read us your your strip. What'd you get? No, not chat. I got a bingo.
I would love to know what 5.
What tipped the scale?
G matched up. Yes.
Yeah. What did it? Was it? It can't have been Germany. Place names. Germany? Probably. It's place names. I bet. Poppy, let us know.
while she's processing that.
Yeah. These spotted cows, I got to ask, do these come with the game or are these extra?
Oh, those spotted cows come with the game.
Very nice. They're lovely.
Yeah, so the game is somewhere between Newsfjord. She says Germany tipped it. It's somewhere between Newsfjord, which is like this tight worker placement game, relatively thematic, and the excess of A Feast for Odin, where you've got like 63 spots.
There's a lot of spots going on in this game.
So in Fields of Arla, I think there are 30 worker placement spots. Although typically you only have access to half of them because it takes place over seasons. So the game takes place over 9 half seasons. Each half season is, half of a year. And at the end of each half season, you'll do a little bit of feed your workers, and there's like a fuel aspect, things that you've seen in other games. Mm-hmm. This is a game which in its base version is a 1 or 2 player max game.
Which is very unusual for such a huge game, I think, to have so much going on.
And I've heard it said, and I don't disagree with this, that the biggest reason for that is that was the maximum amount of stuff they could fit into that giant box.
Yeah, and the box the box is huge.
Because there's literally so much going on in this game. So this is an example of a sandbox game. So A Feast for Odin sort of lets you do all sorts of different things, with the end goal of filling up your board, right? To cover up those negative spaces. Fields of Arla does that sort of, although the negative spaces on your board are relatively minimal. So it's much less stressful than something even like A Feast for Odin. There's 30 spots. There's all sorts of different ways you can explore things. You can, let me think through all the ways you can score points. You can
what
score
do these
points
strips represent, Dr. Ben?
Which one?
These narrow strips that go between the spaces on
okay. Wonderful question. So when you start, you have a very restricted board space. And everything that is towards you behind these strips are dikes. Everything that is behind you is accessible to you. And actually, the picture that I think you're on right now sort of shows it. At the beginning of the game, you really only have 2 spaces you can build on. Over the game, you're going to push those dikes back, pushing the sea back, so that way you have more good fertile space. And actually, at the very bottom of the board, closest to you, you start with essentially these bogs that you have to drain and then cut peat off of to remove those negative points
Cut
from your
Pete,
board.
did you say?
Yes, you have to cut Pete. And too bad we didn't talk about Aura et Labora more, because we'd be talking about Pete there, and this would be a repeat.
Oh boy. Or Farmers of the Moor is also.
Or Farmers of the Moor, yes. Which, we're excluding expansions here. When you buy the expansion for Fields of Arla, it does add a third player to it. So it's essentially a box for a third player. It adds some other interesting mechanisms. But let's think through all the ways you can score points. You can score points by building buildings. By building, the best buildings, by the way, are castles, which are worth 15 points but give you some other perk in addition. You gain points by collecting animals and breeding those animals. So again, not surprising there. So you start with one horse, and over the course of the game, you may get these nice little spotted cows and sheep. And the way that it scores at the end is you get points based on your least prevalent and your second least prevalent, and so you get no points for your most, which is another Uwe Rosenberg thing.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
By the way, Varus points out that their son got bingo as well.
I saw that. What's the list?
Excellent.
Varus, give us the bingo list. I want to see what did it. Oh, money equals food. One money equals one food. Yeah.
Harvest, farming, wood, Pete.
Pete did it. Pete did it. I'm glad we said Pete. Yeah.
Poppy had Germany feeds workers, double-sided resources, Clement Franz, and wood.
Perfect.
I will point out another benefit of Fields of Arla is that it is not illustrated by Clemens Franz.
No, why would that be a benefit?
So it's quite pleasant. But you can build buildings. You can travel. You can build, like these carts, which you can like flip resource tiles over in. You can go heavy farming. You can put out forests on your board and then flip them for upgraded values. It's sort of like, again, that like kitchen sink type of thing from A Feast for Odin, but in a puzzle form that I like better. And I find this game to be so like cozy and pleasant and enjoyable for me. It happens to be on Yukata, so I've been playing it with Poppy and with Omelette and with a couple of other people. At one point, I haven't played it in a while. At one point, I was like number 20 on there because
worldwide.
This is one of the few games that I'm actually really good at.
And Poppy confirms in the chat, it is a delightful game. Oh, I'm starting to get that itch. I'm starting to get that like looking around at my shelf space, thinking, what can I burn?
But here's the thing. Because it has an online authorized version that we can play, like it's something you could try out before you buy. And I don't think it's a game that you will pick up. I mean, maybe you will, but it's harder to pick up on your first play than some of the other games because it is a sandbox and you don't even know what levers to pull. But part of that discovery is super enjoyable. I'm at, I think, 15 or 16 or 20 plays of this game, and I own the expansion and I've played it once. So,
oh wow!
So there's a lot to explore before you feel the need to go out and like grab an expansion to this. So
the Ryan way is to go out, buy the game and the expansion sight unseen.
Buy everything at one time, right?
Just get it all, plus chase down the promo cards for no bloody reason.
I do believe that the expansion does some things to make it a more interesting game. However, I don't think it's essential. So
fair enough.
Tea and Trade is the name of the expansion, which adds tea, which is sort of neat. It's a good game, and I'm sort of. This was actually the very first Uwe Rosenberg game that I purchased, and I don't know why. Maybe because again, I like that sort of homey agricultural feel to these games.
It sounds like the game is a mood for sure.
It certainly is a mood. Like it's the perfect like rainy day, have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, just set it up, enjoy yourself for a couple hours type of game, which I think for a lot of people is what A Feast for Odin is.
For sure. Yeah.
And to me, this just I see a little bit better the levers to pull in this over Odin, and that's why. And something about the cover attracted me, which
those chunky
I can't say
cows.
about his other games. Yeah, it's those cute cows, and like you can actually go on Google Maps, and that this church is still there.
Okay.
And so like you can like get a feel for where this is, and like that's that's his hometown. And I grew up in a rural place with lots of farming and agriculture, and so this is attractive to me for that reason.
Very nice, very nice. Good recommendation. Now it's yeah, you're making me a bit itchy for it. It is your number 2. That's that ain't nothing. Let me get rid of it here.
I'm so curious about your number 2 because I know what your 1 and 2 are. I just don't know which position they're in.
Okay, fair enough. So my number 2 Uwe Rosenberg game, the thing that I would rather play than all the other ones on my list, except for one, and we'll fight about it, I'm sure, is going to be Caverna.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. You knew it was coming. So you can't, and I'll say this again in a Find the Fun that I'm going to shoot about Caverna, you cannot talk about Caverna unless you talk about Agricola. Because Caverna, I think Le Havre was the first like spiritual successor to Agricola, and Caverna was the next one.
And frankly, you already talked about Agricola, so this makes that easier, right?
Right, for sure. So we already know what's going on with Agricola, but Caverna. Hold on, let me just cue it up in Board Game Geek here, and we'll look at a few pictures. So if the complaint about Agricola is that it was, people found it too stressful, then this is essentially the same game except without a whole lot of the stress, because what he's done is he's added things to the game to make it a lot more reasonable. So like Agricola, you have a farm, you've got squares on the farm. This is a very Uwe Rosenberg thing, but he's divided it into 2 halves. You now play dwarfs, and you've got a cave system that you can quote. He calls it, you're a cave farmer. It's like, Uwe, that's called a miner. I don't know what you're talking about, but you have caves and fields, and again, you're trying to put down, there's the night side of the board, you're trying to put down paddocks in order to fence in your animals. He's added a couple of animals, so it's got all the same ones as Agricola, but he also adds donkeys to help you do some mining work, and he adds dogs in an interesting kind of like, almost, I wouldn't, maybe unnecessary curb case rule kind of thing. It's really weird.
They're sort of like a replacement or an addition to stables.
Yes.
So they can watch animals for you?
But they can only watch that one specific animal, which is why it's weird. Right? Yeah, they can only do sheep. So, yeah, there's Uwe holding a copy of it. So, but I mean, I think the big, two big changes, 2 big innovations from Agricola. The first one is that instead of everybody having a handful of 14 cards, that maybe you do a draft and everybody's seen what's available, but you kind of like wha-bam, you lay it down on the table and everyone's like, oh yeah, that card, you played that card and lets you do something. With this, there's a whole pile of little buildings that you can construct that are all out on the table, and they're all public knowledge, and they're all available to everybody right off the top of the game. And one of the daunting things about this, just like a Feast for Odin with 1 million different worker placement spots you can choose, there's a simplified version of the board where you put up for your buildings, but there's a whole crazy huge pile of buildings, and it's always like, trade in 2 of these for 1 of those, and it costs 6 of these and 9 of those, or you can just, for 1 less thing, you can get 1 extra of these or 2 more of those. So it's kind of, I find it a little bit daunting right off the top to parse that all out and figure out what all the buildings do, and so you can spend a long time just staring at that. So I think that's a drawback to the game. Another drawback to the game is just the way that they implemented. So there's this weapons system, and you can arm your dwarfs, and what that essentially does is it lets you go shopping. If you saw Cheryl and me play this game a couple weeks ago, you go shopping on this little card, and depending on how high you've managed to get your weapon, you get to pick from a larger list of items. What I don't like about the weapons, let me just back the picture up, is that they're on all these tokens, and every single time your dwarf uses a weapon, it goes up 1 level. So you have to fish up from this big pile of weapons tokens. I had a 5, I gotta find the 6. Where's the 6? No, that's a 9. And so you're just digging through all these tokens. I think that there could have been, on the publishing side, a smarter way to implement that. But beyond that, the thing I really like about it is the addition of rubies. So quite like the weapons, you have this special resource. It's like a wild resource that, again, you have a shopping list, and you get to blow them on things you might be missing. So just like Agricola, there are a bunch of spots, and you score negative points if you don't cover them up. And so there is that pressure there. But with the addition of weapons and rubies, there's just more leeway. So there's a picture of the rubies and the coal that you need in order to build the weapons. There's just a little bit more flexibility, and it's not this sweaty, nervous, heart pounding through your chest kind of exercise trying to get to the end of the game and feed everybody, which I really, really enjoy. I think yeah, it's like everything that I like about Agricola, plus a theme that I prefer to Agricola. I like the fantasy theme, although I don't think it leans hard enough into the fantasy theme as hard as it could until the expansion comes out. But I just I don't know. I just like it more. I just like it more. That's all. That's all, Dr. Ben. Fight me.
You know, I love that Uwe said, you know what's better than subsistence farming in 17th century Europe is subsistence farming with dwarves.
Right. That's the nut that we've cracked. We'll make it dwarves and now people will love it.
So I guess spoiler alert, my number one game is not Caverna. I don't particularly care for Caverna.
Right.
I appreciate it. I like it. I probably is in my top 100 games. But the design choice was essentially, hey, people are intimidated by the cards in Agricola.
Yes.
So let's take them out of their hands and put them on building tiles, which does give you more agency over what you can choose, I guess, and what you can do with your engine. And, you know, of course, until people grab them out from under you.
Well, it makes it so that everything that's available is available to everybody, and you can't complain at the end of the game, well, I didn't have the milk shed.
Yes,
if I had the milk shed... You know,
it takes away the like BS factor, right? Like,
for real.
Oh man, I didn't get this random card draw, or man, I was bad at drafting, or whatever. But the things that you like that he added, I think, are detractions from the game because they add little extra fiddly bits, like doing a weapon and then an expedition, and then how does this expedition versus weapon value thing work again? And I can't place my dwarf that has the highest weapon value until later. And then I see in the chat they mentioned that this has 1 to 7 players in the same box, and I'm like, that's just too much, guys.
You wouldn't want to do that.
Like, why would you play this with 7 players? I don't think that would be enjoyable, because it would become a 4 or 5 hour game for something that is supposed to be a little bit less stressful and more rules light. I don't know even that it is rules light. I would be challenged if we looked at your Caverna how to play and your Agricola how to play. I think they're almost the same time, and in Agricola you talked about the difference between the revised and original editions and all those things. So,
I think Caverna has more rules than Agricola. I think you're right.
I think so too, which is why I find it interesting that a lot of people say things like, well, I learned Caverna first and that one was a little easier for me to like get my teeth into.
Well, even just like little things like you can only build a ruby mine on a deep tunnel.
Yes,
you can protect or you can guard sheep with dogs, and it's 1 less dog than the number of sheep that you have. So you got 4 sheep, you need 3 dogs, right? Where can a dog be? It can be anywhere. You can stick it on your head, and that's valid in the game. You know, I mean, all the other animals have to be in specific spaces, except for the donkeys, because they can go in mines. You know, and it's just like, and you know, you can have a pig in the forest with the stable, but no other animal in the forest. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of picky stuff.
Now, I just sung the praises of another sandbox game, and I think Caverna is much more sandboxy than Agricola because it's not as stressful.
I would never describe Agricola as a sandbox game. I just saw that for the first time this week. I'm like, sandbox?
No, I would not call Agricola a sandbox game. I would call Caverna much closer to one.
Much closer. I still wouldn't, but closer, yeah.
Yes.
So thank you for the follow, Exacting Fab. And we missed, hard Wage. Thank you very much for the follow as well. And Exacting Vampire. I missed both of those because we were yammering. But thanks for joining us. Continue, Dr. Ben.
Look, it's a good game, and I would certainly never turn down a game of it. But it is a game that I had previously owned that I no longer own.
Fairly put. It does take up a horrible amount of space. Now, before you got rid of it, I want to know, and this isn't, I don't know, is this fair? Is it fair to have a game high up on your list because with the expansion it goes from like good to great?
So that's a great question because I never owned the expansion for this. And so it could be that the expansion does take it up that extra level. I have a harder time.
I played it once. I played it once with my friend Michael Todd, and I really like, he's my friend. I really like playing games with him. I really enjoy his company. And we just had and he's a game designer too. His online handle is The Game Designer. So when you get two game designers together playing a game, it's a different experience than like when I play with Cheryl, who likes games, but she doesn't necessarily try to find all the, you know, the back roads and the sneaky stuff to do and really try to max out the systems.
Right.
Michael Todd and I, we do that when we get together. He's better at it than I am. But like when we played, so if you don't know, the expansion adds a bunch of different fantasy races, and the fantasy races have specific buildings that only they can use in different qualities. So I completely forget who I chose. Maybe the elves, but he chose. Oh yeah, I think the elves because I wanted to grow. There's a new resource. There's mushrooms
like fruit
and
things, yeah.
Yeah, and there's gem fruits. So I think I went with elves because I wanted to try gem fruits out. He went with the trolls, and I love any game that ends with me being able to tell a funny story about it. He goes with the trolls. The deal with the trolls is that they can eat practically anything. Like they can eat rocks. You're not allowed to eat the dogs in Caverna, but if you're a troll, like all bets are off. Right? You can eat the dogs. You can just eat like basically anything. I don't know that you can eat wood, but you can just like cram it all in your maw. And you need to, because like every family member normally only takes 2 food, and trolls, like every family member takes 5 or 6 food, right? So combine that with Michael Todd's his predilection or his preference in any worker placement game is always, well, the way to win is just to get more workers. They always optimize for getting more workers. But of course, there's a risk reward balance in an Uwe Rosenberg game with getting more workers. You get the more workers you get, the more you got to feed them. And I think he was so used to Agricola, and he's played it a whole bunch, that he figured, oh yeah, but you get the extra person, and that gives you enough extra moves that you're able to cover the food cost, no problem. Well, Michael Todd was playing the trolls, and each troll cost 5 or 6 food. So by the end of the game, every harvest, he was having to shovel like 20 or 30 food tokens, dogs, rocks, pieces of wood, like everything he could possibly lay his hands on just to keep these trolls fed. And it was absolutely hysterical. We had a blast. I don't even know who won, but it was just a great time. It was the best time I've ever had with that game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have a hard time getting expansions played just because like by the time I teach the base game rules and then I say, oh wait, we're going to do another 10 minutes of rules teaching, it just is hard for me. It is. And so I usually don't include expansions in my ranking of a game, because if a game was okay and then it had an expansion which made it really good, usually I wouldn't have kept the okay game around.
Yeah, I hear that. It's kind of like there's so many good games out now. They kind of got to like hit right off the first play, and if they don't, it's like, I don't even know if I'm going to pull this down again and play it a second time. For sure.
Now
there is what you were going to say?
I was just going to say I think that it's still a good pick for you, and I definitely agree with all your reasons. Just that it's not for me.
Now, I will say there's a second expansion coming out. It was supposed to be out Q4 this year, but I talked to Lookout, and it sounds like they're still tweaking the balance. I can't imagine, we talked about playtesting, I can't imagine the burden of balancing these games. And for 7 players, and then you got times X number of, different fantasy races. But it's called Fiendish Foes, and it's interesting because it looks to me like what they did with Catan. It's Knizia for Catan, right? The designer. He went with...
Klaus Teuber.
Teuber, not Knizia. Yeah, sorry, it's Klaus Teuber. So Teuber, with the second Catan expansion, went with something's attacking the island of Catan and you have to defend it kind of idea, and that's what it looks like they're doing with the second expansion to Caverna. So I thought the parallels there were interesting to me. There are forces attacking your farms, and you have to contribute with each other. It sounds like you build up a defense force to repel the invaders, and it sounds like just like Cities and Nests of Catan, whoever contributes the most to the defense force probably earns the most graft, and whoever doesn't, probably their whole farm burns down, if we know Uwe.
Probably. Right. It'll certainly be punitive in some way.
For sure. What did we miss in chat? 7 players would go horribly long, but the value prospect compared to some is very good. That's a good point.
So the point I think there is that the stuff you get in the box for the price, it is very well scaled in Caverna, where I think it's about the same price usually as a Feast for Odin, which also has a ton of stuff in it, but not a ton of stuff which includes more players.
Yep, good point. Good point. The way you got to look at it, though, a box may have tons of stuff in it, but if you never get to play with that stuff, it's pointless, right? Like I spent 400 Canuck bucks on the 7th continent, and I've played it once, and I've got like thousands of cards and all kinds of wisdom.
I'm assuming you noped out immediately, right?
No, I wanted to play it with Cheryl, and she just didn't really get it or dig it, so it kind of sits there. But I'm thinking about doing an adventure night stream where I go through stuff that has campaign modes, and we'll just sit and maybe for a month, every single X day of the week, it'll be like, oh, we're playing through the next chapter in this campaign. Hopefully that's
a good idea.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see. We'll see if who knows? You come up with these ideas, and if like the idea is good, like with Déjà Vu, if the idea was good but nobody is particularly interested in Glass Road, then it looks like the format flops. But I'm really interested to know whether the format is a good or bad idea, so I might try that with another game before tossing it in the bin. There are a lot of rules for sure. I enjoyed my first place as Poppy, and I want to learn it better. Of Caverna. Tamriel says there's at least this beginner side for the buildings, and it makes it easier if you don't have to look at all the 50 kinds. Yeah, are there 50 buildings? That's so much. You're right, though. Yeah, there's a simplified side of Caverna. Totally, says Poppy. First time chat for the viewer. Hello, Exacting Vampire. We have the Forgotten Folk expansion, too. It adds some interesting options. I think it's neat. It makes setup a bit more of a pain in the butt, though, wouldn't you say, Exacting Vampire? Because if you pull out a certain race and they say, oh, yeah, I want to be, this race, well, now you have to, like, select certain buildings and take them off the board and then put specific buildings to that race on the board, depending on who you pick. It's a little bit fussy. Sure. What else we got? Tamriel says, I have that expansion too. Had like 3 years, but I haven't played it yet. It's a good time. I recommend it. To memorize the base game rules after you put the game away for some months is challenging, though. I agree. It's too bad nobody has like a video that you could just watch on repeat and hit follow. I don't know. Yeah, I've got a video for Caverna.
If only somebody had a how to play video about it.
That would be nice. And I also have... This is something that I don't think is highly utilized on my channel. I don't know how to promote it more, but I have setup guides. So at the end of every, like I said, at the end of every one of these how to play videos, I have a setup guide, and then I've taken that and I've carved it out into just its own video. So if you ever want to know how to set up and just see like a stop motion thing of the game getting set up before your eyes, especially with some that are so fussy, like I said, Aura et Labora is a really fussy thing to set up for a certain player count, then hopefully you can lean on that resource and it'll help you set your games up if you got them, and I've done videos on them. It does take extra time, yes, plus we haven't played it enough to know the additional rules easy yet. No, it doesn't come... Well, even the base rules I have to look up whenever I get it to the table.
Yeah, a game like that, you sort of have to refresh even if you're really familiar with it.
Well, I found that the last time we played it, I thought, man, if we could just play this 2 nights from now, and then we'll play it again 2 nights, you know what I mean, and just do a series, and just commit to playing it like 4 or 5 times in a month. I think that's a great way to experience a game like Caverna. Sure, off you go. Turning it off, and now the moment that you've all been waiting for. Hopefully, I don't know if you've all been waiting for it, but I'm super excited. So let me just go to the quiz screen, and I hope that you can all still hear me. Let me know. You should be able to hear me in chat. Hopefully, you can still hear Dr. Ben in chat. But that is your quiz code. You want to go to, hold on, if I punch in quiz, you want to go to that address. Go to myquiz.org, and you want to punch in that quiz code, and that's what's going to get you in there. And it's like the kind of quiz, I don't think you can do it on your own. You punch it out, it's all queued up, and then I'm going to hit buttons and we're going to go through each question. So, Dr. Ben, do you have like a cell phone or something that you can use to punch it in? And are you going to do it on your computer?
I'm doing it on my computer.
Oh, you're doing it on your computer. And I have quiz music. So I'll just wait till you guys go to that little address, get it all queued up, get ready to go. myquiz.org, punch in that quiz code. Works just like a Jackbox game. I'm going to eat a cheesy... if you're ever in Canada and you like Cheetos Cheddar Crunches.
It says to access the quiz you need a secret word. I don't know if that's where we all should be.
The secret word is NAAT. N-A-A-T. NAT. That's around a table. That is your password to get in, because I didn't want interlopers to infiltrate the Uwe Rosenberg quiz. This is very high-tech.
I think this all makes for great audio.
Let's see. Let's get some quiz music going. I want to see some confirmations from you folks in chat that yes.
There's 3 in right now.
There's 3. We need more. We're trying to beat our resident expert on Uwe Rosenberg, we got to go with more than 3 people. Come on.
To be fair, don't they say you need like 10,000 hours to be an expert? Even at 150 plays of Uwe Rosenberg games, let's say like even at 2 hours apiece, I don't think I'm quite there. So like,
Whew.
I'm hesitant to say the expert word, but
this is not going to be an easy quiz. I'm just going to warn you.
I know some things about some things.
This is going to be very much I'm going to push random letters and hope that, you know, probability gets me through kind of quiz.
There's 6 connected users right now. I don't know how many more are hoping to jump in. Good.
How many do we have in chat? Because I don't have a view on how many actual chatters.
Well, there are a couple lurkers, right? There's 25 people currently.
25 people.
In chat, it says.
So if you'd like to play this quiz, there are no penalties to not playing this quiz. And if you don't score well in this quiz, there's not going to your seat's not going to zap you or nothing. But I would desperately like you to try it. We're all going to do it at the same time. And once it's done, I don't know that you can play the quiz again. This is it. It's one and done. So this is your only chance.
You can always, you know, go back on the stream replay and play along in real time.
Yes, but that's no.
And laugh about how much smarter you are than us.
Yes, of course. Of course, that's always an option. But, I mean, playing it, there's nothing like playing it live, Dr. Ben. Wow, the weirdest thing, the Twitch window in the quiz is a couple of seconds ahead of Twitch itself. Isn't that fascinating? Maybe your seat won't zap you, but this house has consequences. Okay.
It hasn't changed from 7 in a while, so I think 7
we'll keep it at 7. Okay, we'll keep it at 7. I'll play some quiz music. I'll get it going. Are you ready to play You Don't Know Uwe?
Let's do it.
That's kind of like relaxing quiz music. But here we go. It's going to be a 5-round quiz. Each round is divided into 5 questions, and you'll use your phone to answer. Here we go. Question, okay, yeah, I'm ready. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. This is going to be the grab bag section, and for some reason, the time for the headers on each section looks to be 25 seconds. So I just basically have to fill 25 seconds of talking because I didn't adjust it.
That's impossible.
I have no idea, but you know what? I think I'm going to give it a shot, and I'll do it by saying the following words. Here we go. Question number 1. Which Uwe-designed farming simulator was based on the video game of the same name? Was it Farmerama, Agricola, Bonanza, or Cultivate? People answering. He designed a farming simulator based on a video game, and the video game was called the same thing. This may or may not be one we discussed. What is it?
I don't know. I don't know this one.
It's Farmerama.
Not
a lot of people said Agricola. See what I did there? Farming simulator. Yeah, this was kind of like a Farmville kind of thing that he did a board game on. Which of these images depicts the only legal placement in a feast for Odin? And I put extra time on this because it's going to take some peeping.
Goodness. Well, that's not.
So 3 of these are illegal.
That's
and
not.
You do get extra points for answering earlier than other players. Tamriel's in.
This is harder than it should be, right?
Well, I kind of put this one in there because I promoted the How to Play Feast for Odin video, and there's like an incorrect placement on the thumbnail.
I got it.
And
okay.
The first thing was somebody on Facebook said like, your image is wrong.
Okay, I'm not sure. My answer. Oh, I forget.
Which one was it? What was it? What? Oh,
I got it wrong. I'm pretty sure.
Let's see.
Oh, I got it.
B. First one,
like
you can't have the 2 wheats horizontal. One has to be turned up if you got 2 of the same thing on the feast table. In C, the problem is that the fish is covering up the post in the middle of the house. You can't do that. And in D, the problem is that you can't cover up an income space when you got an empty spot. So left of the horn is empty. In which Uwe Rosenberg game can you take a leak? Is it Bonanza, At the Gates of Loyang, Nusfjord, or Nova Luna? The first mention of Nova Luna in this entire stream.
Yeah, well, neither of us have played it, so...
Really? You haven't played the? Don't give away the answer now. That's. Don't be.
I haven't played Nova Luna, is what I'm saying.
Oh. It's At the Gates of Liang. Yeah, I haven't played Nova Luna either, come to think of it. Sagani, I get them confused. They're like the same game.
At the Gates of Loyang is also on Yukata.
With Spring Meadow and Indian Summer, which game completes Uwe Rosenberg's puzzle trilogy? Is it Cottage Garden, Mr. Cabbage Head's Garden, Veggie Garden, or Tang Garden? All four of those are legit board games, but which one did Uwe design as his? I really want to try.
Mr. Cabbage Head's Garden.
It's got amazing illustration, that's for sure. But is that the answer? Let's find out. It is not the answer. It's Cottage Garden, and I think you got that. Yep, you did. And you were the second one to get it too.
All right, question 5, huh?
Doing okay? Doing okay? Yeah. Which of these fantasy races does not appear in Caverna the Forgotten Folk? Dark Elves, Fairies, Pale Ones, or Silicoids? Oberon's in, Poppy's in, she knows it. DMExplains, third in. Tamriel says, these are not necessarily the right answers, but these are the first answers. Varys has answered. T's in.
I probably got this one wrong.
Come on, Exacting Vampire.
I haven't played this expansion, so I don't know.
It is fairies. There are no fairies.
Wrong. I
was a good third of you got that correct. That's good. Yeah, Silicoids are the rock people. The pale ones are sort of like
I knew that one.
Anemic humans. Agricology is going to be the next round. So that was the first 5 questions. In this
pressure's on here.
I hope you're breaking a sweat. In the second round, all 5 questions have to do specifically with Agricola. So remember what you heard in the stream. Dust the cobwebs out of your brain. Are you ready? Fill in time. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Question number 1. Agricola is the Latin word for what? Farmer, agriculture, crops, or subsistence? And if you're still playing bingo, Latin titles is one of the bingo squares available. Make sure you check that on your card. Still some late answers. T is answering. T obviously hit a Latin dictionary. It's gonna be farmer. Ooh. Almost half said agriculture. That was a tricky one.
I'm impressed by the other high scores so far.
Yeah, this is doing. Yeah, you guys are kicking butt. According to the official, unofficial Agricola Compendium, how many individual cards have been designed for Agricola? That's minor improvements plus occupations. It's either 744, 360, 4,771, or 1,298 cards.
What is it? We're all taking a wild guess here, right?
It's a horrible number of cards, whatever the answer turns out to be. What is it? It's 744 cards. Darn. But you would be forgiven for thinking it was 1298 because at that many cards, it might as well be.
I thought all correct.
Which of these resources cannot be found in Agricola? Is it wood, pumpkins, cattle, or clay? Sorry to cut you off there, Ben. I got to read the questions.
No, you're good. I think the key here is the word you used for this thing.
Could be, could be. Look, he's helping you out. He's helping everybody beat him. How sportsmanlike.
That's okay. I'm a good sport.
It is pumpkins because Agricola's pumpkin-shaped resources, yeah, they're vegetables. They're not pumpkins. They look like pumpkins or squash, but technically they're vegetables.
They're very, very fall thematic.
Which animal does the Farmers of the Moor expansion introduce to the series? Is it dogs, donkeys, goats, or horses? Farmers of the Moor, the first and so far only
I have that expansion like right behind me. Still have never played it.
Oh wow, I've only played it once, which I guess is not a glowing endorsement for the expansion.
Well, but I mean, expansions, man.
Yeah, I know, right? It's horses. Wow, sure half thought it was goats. Interesting. Very plausible. I think goats is a better fit for the series, come to think of it.
Probably.
Which mythological creature appears in Agricola's sea deck? Is it the Krampus, the Basilisk, a Vulpertinger, or a Golem? Vulpertinger is like a flying jackalope. It's like a bunny with owl wings and electric horns. Crazy.
This is a wild guess because I have the revised edition of Agricola, so who knows?
I think basilisk is a good answer, but it's actually the golem. Yeah, because the basilisk looks like farm themed because it's got a rooster head, right?
I love that you used the golem from, what is that, Century Golem Edition?
That's right, yep. So this section is called All About Uwe. It's the next section. So this is like personal biographical information
goodness
about
gracious me.
The life, the time, the man, the designer of all these games, Uwe Rosenberg. The man of the hour, who will eventually get on the stream if his English is good enough. Question number 1. In which country was Uwe Rosenberg born? Was it Austria, Liechtenstein, Jamaica, or Germany? This could be a trick question. You don't know.
It could be a trick question because we know what we would say his nationality is, I suppose.
We do know what his nationality is. That's not necessarily always where somebody was born.
Correct.
I mean, what if it was Jamaica? It is, it's not Jamaica, it's Germany. Okay, I think.
Really?
But a few people chose.
I was one of them. I was assuming that it was a trick.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
it's a trap.
How old is Uwe Rosenberg? Is he 51, 43, 57, or 48? Those are horribly close together numbers. I feel really bad for even making
That's
this
really
question.
rude, actually.
It is awful of me, but hey, there's a right answer. All I gotta say. Get your answer in before the clock times down. Only 3 answers on this one, and what does everybody say? It says, oh, stab in the dark. 51 is the correct answer.
Oh, goodness.
And just under half got that right.
Get rocked here now.
What was the subject of Uwe Rosenberg's thesis? Was it agricultural, environmental, regional economics? Was it responses to ozone of varieties of common bean? Was it probability distributions in memory? Or was it memory in the mendicant orders of the later Middle Ages? And if you listen closely during the stream, you'll probably get this question correct. I know DMExplains likely answered this correctly.
We'll find out.
We'll find out in 2, 1.
We all study odd stuff in graduate school. It's fine.
Probability distributions and memory. That's right, because he's a statistics grad.
He is a statistics guy.
Very good, very good. Varys is still at the lead, 2 points. Where is Uwe Rosenberg's studio? Is it Dortmund, Essen, Berlin, or Stuttgart?
Oh, goodness gracious me.
Now, this is why I don't think he is a part-timer. I think if he has a studio, that implies that he's full-time on...
I'd love to change this, but it's all right. We'll survive.
It's a city in Germany, that's for sure.
I am very impressed with the people who are scoring very high at this quiz.
Yeah, they're killing it, man. Varys is trying. The answer is Dortmund, and that's actually mentioned in like every Uwe Rosenberg rulebook that I've found in every single one of his games. It says his studio's in Dortmund. Next question, the last one in this section. How many individual game credits does Uwe Rosenberg have on BoardGameGeek.com?
Question, does this, is this include...
Includes everything.
Expansions?
Everything,
Okay.
It's expansions, it's spin-offs, every design credit that he's put his name to. Yep,
Thanks.
Not art credits, not producer credits, but game design.
That was my question, because like expansions, I know how many he has. He has 66 standalone game designs.
It's 238 different design credits on Board Game Geek. Unbelievable. And DMExplains takes the lead over Poppy, who's at 57 points. This is a nail biter.
This is close. Oh, are we doing Bonanza, really?
Yes, this is the second last section. You've got a gimme in here because we actually discussed it. So there's a little bit of prior knowledge going on.
I apologize, yes. I apologize for what I know.
This section is called Totally Bonkers, and it's all about the Bonanza series of games, which has had numerous sequels and spin-offs and extra decks and all kinds of crazy nonsense. Question number 1. Which unique game mechanic is the hallmark of the Bonanza game series? Is it that you can't rearrange your hand, you can't look at your hand, your draft cards are based on blind bid, or you only play cards from your opponent's hands? It's one of these. I couldn't make all the questions really hard. I had to have a few gimmies.
Yeah, this one's a gimme, I think.
Yeah, and we did discuss it at length earlier in the stream.
I think so.
It's that you cannot rearrange your head. Very, very good. Most people got that. 66 for DMExplains. Poppy falling a little bit behind at 63. You can do it, Poppy. Varys, come on, pull it out. We believe in you. In Bonanza, the blue bean is dressed as a cowboy because Blaubonen is slang for this. Is it cowboys, spurs, tight-fitting chaps, or bullets? There are some weird translation, like lost in translation things going on with the Bonanza.
I think there's a lot of like puns that are funny German puns that aren't that funny in America.
The answer here is blue beans are bullets. Makes sense, though. I was proud of the tight-fitting chaps answer.
You could have gone another way with that.
Next question, number 3. Which comic book character inspired a Bonanza expansion? Was it Spider-Man, Batman, Poison Ivy, or Ant-Man?
Don't know on this one.
This one's weird, man. I'd like you to go look this up after the quiz, because you'll be like, what? Did they actually get the rights? Because I don't know if they did. And I believe it was pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe, so maybe... Oh, I just...
Oh, you just spoiled...
Whoops. I just spoiled a little bit.
It's all good.
It's Spider-Man. Oh, nobody guessed it.
Sony, man.
They actually have hanging upside-downy Spider-Man beans for Bonanza in one expansion.
Well, nobody got it, so...
Which of these historical figures has not figured into a title of a Bonanza expansion spin-off? Was it Marco Polo, Benito Mussolini, Napoleon Bonaparte, or Empress Elizabeth of Austria? One of the... There's 3 of them that an expansion has been based on, except for one person. Who's that person?
Well, I hope I got this wrong, just looking at the answers more carefully.
It is... Thank goodness there's no Benito Mussolini, though I tried to pick somebody...
I really hope I got this wrong.
I tried to pick somebody who you could make a bean pun out of his name, though. Like Bonito Mussolini. The anniversary edition of Bonanza, Born to be Wild, which featured racially stereotyped depictions of black and Chinese characters, was released in which year? Was it 1976, 1843, 2012, or, due to the controversy, it was never released? Another one that you're going to want to look up pictures of after the quiz. Because,
or not. You won't believe your eyes. Terribly problematic.
It's downright racist is what it is.
Yes.
Unfortunately, 2012, they released this overboard, horribly racist Bonanza expansion.
Yeah, it's awful.
It is really bad. Okay, that was everything for... It kind of ended on a down note on the Bonanza section, but the next one coming up is pretty pictures. So this is the last of 5 rounds, the final 5 questions. What do we got? DMExplains at 82, Ferris is sitting at 74, Poppy is at 68. There are channel points prizes for the winners. Nothing to spend your channel points on yet, but I'm working on it. Give me some time. I've only had months.
3. And I just get the gratification of winning.
Here we go. Question number 1. In which Uwe Rosenberg game can you find this meat pull? And it doesn't show the picture, but just picture a meat pull. A meat pull shaped like meat. Oh, I hope these pictures work. If they don't, this whole section's busted.
That's
the
a
meat
bummer.
pull is from what? Is it from Fairy Trails, New York Zoo, Hallertau, or Caverna Cave versus Cave? I think it still works without the picture, but the rest of them might not.
Yes.
We might have to abandon the quiz if these don't work. It's Hallertau, that's right. Hallertau has the meat pull and the other 3.
Another place in Germany, by the way.
Ah, look at that. Yes, we're famous for growing hops, apparently.
Funny, you don't actually brew any beer.
In which Uwe Rosenberg game cover does not feature 2 characters' heads in profile facing each other?
Does not.
Does not. Okay. So is it Robin of Locksley, Le Havre Inland Port, Agricola, Creatures Big and Small, or Caverna Cave versus Cave? So there's like a theme.
I have a thing here, yeah. I know the answer to this question. I think.
The only one that does not have that setup is Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small.
Oh, really? How about that?
All the other ones have 2 faces looking at each other.
I know Le Havre, Inland Port, and Caverna Cave versus Cave because those are 2-player games. Is Robin of Locksley also 2-player?
Well, there's the picture right there. Which of these Uwe Rosenberg games was illustrated by frequent collaborator Clemens Franz? Was it Solomio? Did he draw Mercator? Did he draw Robin of Locksley? Or Bean Trader?
I know this answer. No question.
I had to shorten Robin of Locksley because it wouldn't fit. But there's the 2 faces looking at each other.
You may be surprised about which one it is.
It might be, yes. That gives away the answer. But yes, it's bizarrely...
Does it, though?
It's Mercator. Yeah.
Which is the only big box Uwe Rosenberg game I have not played.
Oh, wow. And like that Sol Emil illustration looks like Uwe Rosenberg stuff, or Clemens Franzen stuff. Which Uwe Rosenberg game features this ineptly drawn chapel? I don't have a picture of the chapel, but if you watched, Poppy got the answer. If you watched a prior stream when we were playing this game, so that rules out 2 of these answers. There was a horribly badly drawn.
You know what? I goofed that up because I definitely know the answer. I clicked the other one.
So this one wasn't super fair because the picture for some reason is supposed to show up in a box. I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but I'm not seeing the box.
Yeah, we aren't seeing it.
But it's good to know for next time.
Definitely or at Labora.
Or at Labora. So yeah, the next one may or may not work.
Because Franz did not do Glass Road. So that should have been my alert. Oh, here we go.
This animal appears in many Uwe Rosenberg games. It can get pregnant in A Feast for Odin. You can cook it for 2 food with a cooking hearth in Agricola. You can guard it with dogs in Caverna. Draw that animal. Please tell me you have an interface for drawing an animal on your screen right now.
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. So the way this works is that artificial intelligence is apparently able to figure out what you've drawn.
It accepted my answer. How about that? Oh, that's something. Oh.
So we'll see.
Oh man, I can't. Yeah. Wow.
This and I hope that we get to see.
I hope it shows the answers.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Oh wow, we've got 75 seconds left here.
Yeah, I put extra time on the clock because maybe it takes a little bit longer. Poppy's in.
Oh, that's a joy.
I don't know if Poppy's gonna pull out the what is it, 15 points required? I can't do that.
I think I've got this one.
I think you got it on lock.
It has been close and enjoyable. A good challenge, I will say.
Yeah, a few times they were catching up to you. Once you even slipped in the first position, but
I was behind for the first round, roughly.
And that was the grab bag too, and you're the one who's supposed to have played all of the Uwe Rosenberg games. But
I wasn't expecting the grab bag that you picked from, I suppose.
Right, and what I was amazed by when I started researching him was that he's done so many games and so much stuff that I haven't even heard of. Like, have you played any of his women and men games?
No.
That's I
can't say that I'm disappointed by that.
No, I don't know. Like, knowing what we know of Born to Be Wild, I don't know if it would be a good time or not.
Yikes! No.
Right.
Let's. You know what? I'm just gonna go with the games I've played. I don't have a big desire to
stick with Arla. You're good.
All right,
and that's it for the quiz. Let's see what we got. And yes, 71%. Somebody didn't draw a sheep, so I don't know what the heck's going on, and I don't know what it's going to say after 52 seconds. But I hope we can see some of those sheep pictures. But that is the Uwe Rosenberg You Don't Know Uwe quiz. Let's take it back to
I need to bang some pots, right?
Yes, you absolutely do. You win by a mile, by what is it, 15 points? Is that what you won by? I didn't see the final there. Something good. You won by I don't know, quite a bit. You did
some amount.
Well, some amount, and it was more than who was in second and third. But the first, second, and third place winners, you should have a chat command that, if you like, you can punch it into chat and get yourself some more cheddar. And I'll eventually have something good to be able to... So Omelet's typing commands, hopefully trying to see the winning commands and punch them in. It's not going to happen. Hopefully I've locked it up so that you can't punch in these commands a million times. And if not, I'm going to have to dip out to Streamlabs and fix that.
Yep, sure.
Let's see. What I want to know before we get to our number one Uwe Rosenberg games on each of our lists is I would love, Omelet, if you'd be able to keep an eye on who's streaming, who's not streaming. What we're going to do at the end of this is throw to Rado if the R&R show is up. And if not, we'll throw to somebody else. So if you can use the... Yes?
It sure is up. And
it is.
He already has queued it for us. So...
Oh, perfect. Great. So let's get on to our number one. This is the, hopefully, the greatest Uwe Rosenberg game that exists. And I almost want to go first because I think mine will be anticlimactic. I think we want to hear first from the guy who hasn't played a million Uwe Rosenberg games. Does that make sense?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. And you know what's coming up. You've already said that you saw it coming a mile away. And we've already talked about it. My number one Uwe Rosenberg game is A Feast for Odin. Let me duck out of the picture's way. So we talked about what you like about it and some of the things that you really don't like about it. I have you to blame / thank for this because I remember very clearly I was at 401 Games, a great board game store in Toronto, and I was stymied by the amount of choice there was. I didn't know what to pick, and of the 5 things that I was going to pick from, you said, why don't you get A Feast for Odin? And it wasn't one of the 5. I'm like, no, I'm asking for opinions on these 5. And you said, no, it's like A Feast for Odin or nothing.
These other ones. You want these other ones.
Skip all that, A Feast for Odin or nothing. I'm like, oh man. And I thought, like, he knows his games. We like similar things. Should I? And then the other thing was like, A Feast for Odin was like $800. It wasn't that much, but it was like it cracked 100 easy. It was like $130 or something.
It was like Seventh Continent.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, not quite that level, but it's definitely a lift from the knees proposition. A Feast for Odin was. So I got it on a whim, and I thought, I don't know, this better be good. DMExplains. I got it home. We cracked it open pretty fairly closely from when we bought it, and Cheryl and I sat down and we played the 2-player mode. And I think one of the reasons why I like the game so much is that Cheryl really likes the game, and so that helps a lot, right? So if there's a game that I like, that my spouse likes, and we're going to get it off the shelf a whole lot more than other games, I mean, that's a total win for me there. You can almost, it doesn't even matter what the game's about. Could just be like throwing stuffed burritos at each other or something completely inane.
I have that game.
You do? Do you like it?
It's fine. It's fine. But back to A Feast for Odin.
Back to A Feast for Odin. So I really like the game. Strangely enough, I didn't really like it that much while I was playing it, but it wasn't until the end. You know, when you eat a good food or have an interesting drink that leaves like a hot chocolate. I don't really drink a lot of hot drinks, but you know, it makes your tummy all warm, and you just like ride that out, and you're like, that was just like a really good gamey feeling. You know, that's you mentioned that with Fields of Arla. That was Feast for Odin for me. I don't like polyomino stuff. I just picked up Cottage Garden. I'm not super excited to play it. I don't like the idea of polyominoes. I shouldn't say it, but the Tiny Towns was not for me. I'm too ADHD to play slow motion Tetris effectively at all, and that's what that game is. So I don't like it. Cartographers, maybe I'll like it occasionally, but that's again more because Cheryl will like it. But this isn't polyomino to me, weirdly. This is more like, I described it on the stream a couple weeks ago as a jigsaw puzzle where every piece fits with every other piece, and they're all different sizes, and your whole goal is just to get the piece of the right size. Sometimes the right shape, but mostly the right size that you need. And it's just good. I mean, that's not very helpful for me to describe it as just good, but it's
a good game. We talked about it a lot. There's a lot of things that it does really, really well. And to many, I think that they would consider it sort of the masterpiece, the culmination of all these other games that he's put together led up to this game.
It does. It feels like the opus, right? It feels like what's the Latin for grand work?
I don't know.
I don't know. We don't
remember Latin words are hard, right?
Yeah, Latin words are very, very difficult. Oh well, we don't need to belabor the point or beat a dead horse on A Feast for Odin. It's good. If you like Uwe Rosenberg games, get it. It's cool. I hope you'll like it. But I am interested to know. Actually, I think I know what your number one is. Let me just cue up the graphics here, and I'll hover my finger over it because I think it's going to be no surprise here. But tell us, the man who has played all of the 248 Uwe Rosenberg games?
Not all
of them. No, but the ones of note. I want to know.
All the big box ones. My favorite is still Agricola.
Look at that.
Agricola, we talked about it before, and I must be a sadist or something because I like the misery and stress of Misery Farm. So just like you blamed me for A Feast for Odin. Actually, you don't know this, I don't think, but you're to blame for my love of Agricola.
What? I had no idea.
So you made a Find the Fun in 2019 or so.
Yes.
And about Agricola, and I had been a little bit hesitant to pick up Agricola because I had heard it's very stressful and a little bit mean.
Yep.
And I watched your Find the Fun. I was literally in the hospital. My son had just been born. In the hospital, up in the middle of the night. My wife's sleeping because, she gave birth and is tired, and deserved all the rest she could have. And I'm sitting up with the baby and watching that, and I immediately said, you know what, I'm going to download this app. So I played the app. I did not enjoy it the first time, so I played the app again.
But why did you play it again? Because we said, like, if you don't like it the first time, why would you ever touch it with so much good stuff to play?
So an app is a little bit easier to play again, but also just I started sort of like you said when you played A Feast for Odin. The first time it didn't like grab you, right?
Right.
Until you got to the end and you're like, oh man, I really enjoyed that process. And so I just started to see, hey, here's what I would do differently next time. Oh, now, like, I played it 3 or 4 times on the app, and then I finally added the cards. Like, you don't even add the cards the first time you play, really.
Oh, really? Wow.
I mean, then I played it again and again and again, and bought the physical copy and have played that again and again. And now it's on Board Game Arena, and so I'm up to like 50 plays or something like that of Agricola, and it's not slowing down. The reasons I like this are all the things we've talked about. I like that it's punishing. I like that it's hard and stressful. I like especially the cards. There are a lot of cards in this game. I think I own all of the expansions for the revised edition, all the deck expansions. There's just so much variety there and so many interesting engines you can build, and it changes based on the player count. And like I have a really good strategy for solo play that doesn't work in multiplayer. And so having those things because like part of the benefit is like letting resources accumulate. You can't do that in multiplayer because people just go and grab them.
Yeah, for sure.
And I stinking love it. And it's not slowing down. It's actually my number 2 all-time game behind Race for the Galaxy, which is right back here. But
of all time, like your whole top 100, and you posted recently a top 100, did you not?
I did post a top 100 that was I've played something like 300 board games or something like that, and I've played a lot of games, and so I thought I probably could throw together a top 100 or so. I say a lot. I know a lot of people have played a lot more than that, so not.
But that does not diminish your experience.
But
you played 300. That's great.
But I've played a lot of games, and Agricola stands up at the top as a game that I want to keep playing. Now, don't get me wrong. All of these games in my top 5, I'd say, are in my top 20 of all times games because I really love this designer. I love his games, but Agricola is just a special game to me. And maybe at some point it'll get overtaken, but for now, I don't see that happening anytime soon. So
fair dinkum. So that is our top 5 from each of us. So really put it together, it's a top 10. I mean, if you're gonna...
we talked about, 8 unique games or something like that?
Quite a few. One we didn't mention, very popular game, Patchwork, which I will be playing on a stream with Cheryl next week, but it's going to be the Christmas edition of Patchwork, again, sent to us by Asmodee Canada. So if you're interested at all in Patchwork, I mean, we didn't mean to slag it off. It's a very popular game.
It is a very popular game.
Yeah.
Neither of us really care for polyominoes.
That's what it is.
It's not my favorite polyomino game. I would recommend 1 or 2 other polyomino games above Patchwork. So that's probably why it's not on this list.
But still, Patchwork Christmas would make a lovely Christmas present, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
It's cheap. It's like $20-ish, right?
And Patchwork is on Board Game Arena, and I have been playing it and enjoying it more than I did before.
Huh, interesting. And it's also a really easy game to come up with your own cheap upgrades because there are buttons, there are cardboard buttons. And if you just go to the fabric store and buy a bunch of blue buttons, you've got this instantly awesome upgrade for the game. It's kind of cool. Yeah. Sure. And then, so just to tease what's coming up, and I will hit the raid button because the R&R show is in progress now. Hopefully this works because I got a whole folderol. I pushed the button. Did it go? Did it go? Go! Why? Why doesn't the button work? I'm pushing it as hard as I can. I gotta get that button fixed. That's okay, I can do it manually. But just to tease what's coming up on Saturday night, we've got How to Play Halotau. We're gonna do Patchwork on Tuesday with Cheryl, and then somewhere in there, perhaps, we're running out of time in Uwe Rosenberg Month, but I have a copy of cottage garden that I would like to do something with, and I would also very much like to do a Bits Please episode for you, showing you the cool insert that I printed out for a Feast Rodent, which is available for free on Thingiverse if you have your own 3D printer and you want to print that out. And I may even show the 3D printed insert that I cranked out for Caverna. But one thing I wanted to say about Caverna was that I really am actively chasing down all of the promos and extra content for Caverna, and I'm not really doing that with his other games. So, I mean, that signals to me that there's something particularly compelling to me about Caverna. I want to thank our special guest today, Dr. Ben, DMExplains. Thank you very much for the follow. Who is that? Potmensch? Thank you so much. Potmensch, we're going to pop over to the R&R show with Rado and Real very shortly. They're doing another top 10, if you like top 10s, and that's all the people on the internet want, is just top 10s. Then hopefully you'll join us for a raid. Dr. Ben, thank you so much for joining me and for inspiring this
Thanks for having me.
Content.
This was great. Thank you.
Okay, being awesome. All right, I'm gonna make the raid thing go. Raid Rado runs through because my button's not working, and one of these days you're gonna be able to see that fancy animation I came up with. Go. Okay, remember, you get channel points for raiding. What can you do with channel points? Such amazing things as, and not to mention, so look forward to that. That's coming up. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again in the next stream. Did you just watch that whole thing? Oh, hey, to 100% this video, click the badge to subscribe, and then click the bell to get notifications when I've got new stuff.